Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another collector conversation. The final collector conversation, we can't say, but it's definitely going to go on hiatus after this show this evening. And let me bring my partner in crime, James Siegel, onto this show. Hey, James, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon, good evening, Bill. Just
Yeah.
getting ready to
So,
hurt some cats.
yeah. Well, so we're gonna. So, like I just kind of mentioned, it's going to be our last show, at least for a while. I think we were talking in the green room beforehand. I think we'll come back. I think these roundtables have been a really great thing for the hobby. It's certainly a place for us to voice concerns and talk about things that are important to us, and bring up topics that I think new collectors and even old collectors have learned a lot from. That will benefit the hobby for a very long time. But as you know, when we first talked about the concept for the show, and then and how we were going to handle the topics and the panels, it's a lot of work to kind of pull these things together. And even for you, having them once a week, it's wrangling these things take a little bit of time. So that's really why when we talked a few weeks ago, we thought, all right, we need to kind of hit a point where we're kind of going to pause the show for a little bit and really let the community kind of dictate, I think, when we need to come back. When there's topics that are important, need to be talked about, and definitely need to be talked about in a roundtable format like we've had here, that we're going to do that. And I'm looking forward to that and continuing to working with you and everybody that we've the 30, I believe, panelists that we've had on over the course of 20 shows that we know we can rely on to come in and talk about these topics with us.
Yeah, it's been an awesome run, man. It started out just kind of a chat between me and you of getting the community involved and involved into the collector conversation show, and as we've gone along, just like kind of like your dueling dealers, little pieces happen that we weren't expecting to happen. We got some nice memes out of it, or some things we passed back and forth, but it's been absolutely enjoyable. And I know there's the alumni from the shows have really stayed in touch, stayed in communication. And like you said, I see them, pitching you for other topics in the future, other shows in the future, maybe collector hosted, not collector hosted, whatever you guys are comfortable with. But one of the nice things that I appreciate is, you listen to an idea for content on the YouTube channel and you gave it a shot. You let us try to run with something. You were, a fantastic host as you always were. But you let us do it, and it was enjoyable. And 20 shows, man, 6 months and 20 shows on something that I thought I'd do once or twice, and we'd bounce out. So I appreciate that.
No, well, it's been a blast, and for me, when I started doing these things, I never really thought about. I was always thinking of just like one or two shows as being all that the channel really needed, but I could tell early on that the community wanted more, and so we did. So I tried pushing myself to do more as well, and try to make a channel like the EXP, right, that Nick Ferrucci's put together. I mean, that's a major effort, and I never thought that I would get to that extent, but 4 or 5 shows a week, and sometimes doing 6 or more is just at the end of the day, it's just too much. But the thing is, I've enjoyed every bit of it, and I think that we really have made a major, not major, it's made an important impact on the hobby. And like I've made friendships with people that I would never have had the opportunity to have talked to in person, and it's so it's been a wonderful thing for me as well, and I think for everybody else. I mean, just think about when we're at a show next. Everybody's gonna. I know you. I know Rob. I know Aranga. And Jason. I can't wait to be able to hang out with everybody in person, and we're gonna know each other and know so much about each other when we finally get to hang out. It's again, this has been such a blast for me. So
it really opens the community up. That's been great. Quick plug: I'll be at the Seattle Emerald City Comic Con, so if any of you guys are running up there, hit me up on Cat. So
yes, exactly. Well, yeah. Oh, thank you, Aranga. And I should also thank Ron earlier for the super chat. I really, really appreciate both of those, and as does everybody here. And wait, I should read that up. James said this was going to amount to join the show today. All right. So why don't we? So tonight it's a little different. We're not doing a single like 4 panelists and single topics. We're going to have some group panels on single topics, and James kind of set those topics up, I believe, by and large, right, James?
Yeah. Me and Mikhail, actually, we kind
of. Oh, Mikhail.
And, we kind of thought about, TV episodes that are going off the air. They always do their reunion show to close it out. So go big or go home, man. We're like, let's do a alumni reunion show. Let's get as many of the previous collectors on here as possible. And, let's have a logistical nightmare, like I said earlier.
Well, that's what you've created. So you get to kind of manage the green room in your own way and manage the private chat that we have going on Facebook, so we can make sure we can get everybody in and everybody out as quickly as possible. Thank you, Fish, of course, and Scott as well. Because that's good. I like that one. Cry because it happened, not because it's over. Very good. Very good. All right. Well, let's get our first group of panelists in, because we've got some people we've not seen in a while. First up, Reuben the Collector. Very nice to have you back, Reuben.
Thank you. Good
yeah.
to see you.
Yeah, likewise. And let me get Fish in here as well. We thought he was going to be late, but he was right on time, right as 9 o'clock hit. And and we got Dan Duke here as well. And where is Jason? There he is, Jason, right there. So good evening, guys. It's nice to have you all here for this final-ish panel. And you guys get to start us up on a topic that I know is near and dear to the CGC board's topics, but it's the concept of flipping art, and it's very general, because my topic says nothing more than flipping art. So I don't know if James, if you have anything to add to this before you disappear and leave us to your sure. Machinations. But what were you thinking we would fully discuss and cover on this topic?
So when me and Mikal, kind of put the panel together, and this was requested by the alumni group too. Let's grab the gentleman who, let's say, debate the strongest. And so that's panel number one. And then let's give them a topic that they can go in any direction they want. So a lot of people have feelings on flipping art, selling art. So it was more of let's open it up with go. So you guys enjoy.
All right, James, thank you very much. I appreciate that starting point there. I'll drop you out for now, and keep an eye on the chat for us on Facebook. So guys, flipping art, clearly it wouldn't have been put on our list tonight if it wasn't a hot topic in its own way. So I don't know who wants to kind of start things off as far as giving their perceptions on flipping art. I mean, people flip art for so many different reasons, right? I mean, sometimes you get something with the intent to flip it, and other times you get something that somebody else wanted just as much, so you flip it for that reason. So, and the CGC boards have a whole super popular thread all about flipping original art. Yes, exactly. I mean, flip of the week. And so it's a hot topic for everybody at any time. And I know sometimes it's about calling out particular collectors or dealers or whatnot. But Jason, how about you? I'm going to let you kind of just give us some of your thoughts on, hey, you spoke up first, so that's why I
have no problem. First of all, I just want to thank James for putting me on the troublemaker group, as I think you call it in the background. So be honored, all three of you guys with me. Flipping art is a taboo subject, I guess, right? But I think there's some different ways, like Bill said, whys and so on and so forth. But I think it's also kind of sometimes a necessary evil nowadays, right? Art, the prices on everything is going so insane. When you see the opportunity to buy something below market, I usually grab it, right? With either the intention of selling it later or trading it, or just its value escalating at the way that the prime art is moving. I don't have an endless bank account for original art. So to keep active, it's something that I'm not shy about it. I've done dueling dealers a couple times. I mean, I'm active on CAF Live, and I think that it shouldn't be as taboo as it is, because it's a realistic piece of it. If you have the opportunity to buy something at a depressed value, if it's A material, I don't see why you shouldn't. For me, I know, a lot of people save cash, right? I'm not the best at saving cash to begin with. And when I do save cash, real life, that money goes to real life, right? But if I buy a piece of art and stick it in a portfolio and, later on need to sell that to buy something I prefer, I don't really see a negative position from that. and the art moves, right? If that can, I've just had this conversation with someone the other day. I think it was Mikhail who said he had this big war chest of cash, but won't buy as much as it did 2 years ago. Well, had he bought art 2 years ago with that money, he would be able to buy as much now because that rose just as quickly as the other art. I'd love to hear some of your guys' opinions. I know, it's kind of a diverse group here. Reuben, you're a dealer, so you might have a totally different outlook. And Fish and Duke, you guys are a piece collectors, so it's a little bit different. But I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and then we can talk about it more.
I'd love to hear from Fish.
Oh, Fish. All right. Well, Reuben's
good to see you, Reuben, man.
Charge.
You've been MIA. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
So thank you. They call this the great debaters group. Really, they mean let's get the a-holes off the show first. But let's do it. First of all, except for the people who have never sold a page, and there's a few of those, right? People who just never ever sell, but those are the rarities. I think everyone flips. People are asking in the chat, what's a flipper? If you bought something with the purpose of reselling it 3 days later, I guess you're really a flipper. If you bought something and then you decide 2 months later, hey, I can make a lot of money and buy a better page, then you're still a flipper. Your intentions matter. Since when does your intention exactly matter? Like, who cares what someone else's intention was, really? They're doing the same thing. It's 2 months later instead of 2 weeks later. What's the difference? So we're all flippers of some sort if we've sold the art. I don't really understand the hate for it. I'm not going to mention any individual names, but let's take it, dealers, not Reuben. I won't mention any names. Let's take Glenn. Haha. He's a buddy of mine, actually. There's a lot of people call him the doubler because he buys a page and sells it for double. But if it was a building, if it was an office building he bought because it was in his mind undervalued and he was able to sell it for double, we'd say, oh, wow, great businessman. And I think the same thing here. Listen, if no one's going to buy it for the higher price, then it's just going to sit there and he'll lower the price. I don't really have a problem with that. In fact, as a collector, I'd much prefer someone like a dealer buy something and put it up for an extra 10 grand than someone like Dinesh buy it where it's just gone forever. If someone buys it who's very wealthy and it's just gone and their intention is, oh, this is going to go in a museum in 40 years, I'll never own that piece, which maybe is a selfish want. Museums may be better than me owning it, but from selfishly, I'd rather talk myself into spending the extra 10 grand or not spending the extra 10 grand. At least it's my option, as opposed to some people buying it and it's gone forever. I really think that flipping is fine. It belongs to you. Do whatever the heck you want with it. I think it's weird how people think they have some sort of ownership over something that belongs to someone else. There's a difference between this and something like Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster will instantly buy out all the tickets to the Metallica concert on the spot. There's no other tickets. They bought them all. Now, if you want it, you got to pay them double. I think that's wrong. But if there's, a million pieces of art out there and someone else got to this one piece first, it's theirs now. And if they want to sell it for more, it's theirs. It's capitalism. You have more than people in other countries have. So you're also doing capitalism. I think there's only one important thing. I think the important thing is that you got to do it with ethics. You got to do it with honesty. Honesty is just key. You're flipping, you're not flipping. As long as you treat people honestly, you don't pretend it's something it isn't. You don't make a deal and then change the deal when you can get more for it from someone else after. As long as you're treating people honestly, I have no problem with flipping. Flip away. I much prefer that than going into a black hole collection.
And Fish, did you? Sorry, I don't know if I missed it, or did you make the point you wanted to make about bringing Glenn as the example of a dealer?
No, well, Glenn's a again, he's a buddy. I'm a little bit biased with him, but he's a dealer that people I know consider a flipper because when he sees something he thinks is undervalued, he'll buy it and he'll put it right back up for more money. And often he's right. And I guess I just don't. I know why people are frustrated. They want it for the lower price, but they weren't going to be the one that were going to get there first anyway. So it was going to be someone else. So I don't really see a problem with it. If you don't want it, don't buy it. I just don't see a problem with it.
And Glenn's business model, I mean, he has a lot of buyers. He knows what a lot of buyers wants. He knows what their thresholds are for wanting to pay for something. And if he can look at something and say, I can buy that for 4 and flip it for 11.
If he's right about it being undervalued, then
right. It is just how it is. But he knows somebody's willing to pay 11,000 for it, and he's got that. That
Reuben,
contact to do it.
The opposite of Glenn would be someone like Bashara, who takes it and says, I'll put this in my collection and I'll bring it back out in 6 years from now. And in 6 years from now, I'll sell it for more. As someone who wants to own the art, I selfishly want to grab all the art. I'd prefer Glenn. I have the option of buying it. Can I afford it? That's a question mark. But Bashara, it's gone. In 6 years from now, it'll come out probably at a super high price then also. I have more options with someone like Glenn, you know. So people don't like it. I know they don't. They bristle, but I have no problem with people owning what's theirs and charging whatever the heck they want for it. I don't mind it.
So I would. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
So I would say the difference. I think with a dealer, somebody making their livelihood of it, I don't have a problem with it, because that's their livelihood. That's the purpose of what they're doing. But for me as a collector, I try to avoid buying stuff for the purposes of flipping, because number one, it limits how much cash I have for the things that I do want, because we don't know when those pieces will come up. And if my money's tied up in a flip item, then I'm risking the chance that I'm gonna not be able to get forward something I really want. And also, usually if I find something that's under market and I know other collectors who are interested in that stuff, I will recommend it to those people. I will pass those deals on to other collectors that I know, as a way to kind of help, friends in the hobby, as opposed to try to buy it and then resell it to them, or to sell to somebody else. Because for me, the hobby is not about making money. I make money in my job, and this is for me a fun thing. It's an enjoyable hobby. So the goal is not to make money. And if I bought something to flip it, I feel kind of cheap about it, right? I mean, I don't have a problem with selling something long term. So it doesn't matter if you
feel cheap or you feel guilty.
Yeah, both. Like basically, like I would say flipping, the difference between flipping and reselling would be if you're buying it, number one, with the intention to resell it, and number two, if you're selling it quickly. So quickly will be under a year. So if you bought it now it's possible that you got it and you didn't like it, which is possible. So if you're getting rid of it because of that, and you happen the price went up or down, that's fine. But that's my opinion of the definition of flipping. Flipping is short term, not long term. If you're gonna keep it for 5 years, like Bashir, that's not really flipping. That's investing of some sort. That's an investment. But I don't buy art for investment, right? Like I hope it'll go up, but I don't buy with the expectation that I will sell for more anytime soon, right? If I do. Yeah.
Reuben, I know you're next. Let me cut out 1 second. Dan,
No worries.
James is right. He said in the chat, "You have a heart of gold." You do. You sent me this T-shirt. Thank you very much. But I'd rather live in a world of flippers than in a world where you're my king. And you deciding flipping is exactly 1 year after you bought it, but if you sell it at 364 days, you are guilty of so and so. Like, I don't want someone else making rules for the stuff I bought with my money. Like you do what you want, I'll do what I want. If you want to resell it,
arbitrary, right?
Say again.
It's very arbitrary, right?
Yeah, sure. It's his personal rules, but it's not like they should apply to us.
I'm not applying it to you. I'm applying it to that's how I apply it to myself.
Okay.
All right.
Reuben.
So Dan, a lot of times what I'll wind up doing is, I'll buy multiple pieces to get a better price on what I'm really after. I may like the other pieces that are in the deal with it, but it's cost differentiation, right? It brings down the cost of the piece I want if I can make some money on the other pieces or get a better price buying multiple pieces. I don't really see that as a negative in any way, shape, or form. What you said, I pass along pieces I find to people all the time. Fish could tell you, I found a fantastic piece for him a couple weeks ago.
The Watchman page I just bought, it was a really good price, and Jason could have bought it, and he passed it to me, and he knew I was looking for one. I got one for a killer price.
So I'm not saying to be kind of cutthroat about it, but when you have the opportunity, when you can get a better opportunity for yourself, I don't see why someone wouldn't look to do that.
Can I ask? Okay, the question is, I think there's a difference. I think if you bought it, say from a dealer or somewhere privately, like in person, it's definitely one thing. And then if you bought it though, like in a public auction, where you're bidding up prices against other collectors, but really you don't want it because you love it. You're buying it strictly for a monetary purpose. And now there's no deals, like what you said. You're not combining deals to save money. You're just going after a specific piece to double it or triple it because that's what your expectation is. And some collector is bidding it up because they're trying to finish their collection, or they're just crazy about a certain artist for personal reasons. I think that's where really it hits me hard. Like in those cases, if you're buying it from a person directly, that's not I don't really take a problem with that. But when you're doing it in a public auction, I think that's where, for me, it hurts more.
We can only agree at this point. There's no deals in auctions, right? I don't know. I haven't seen a deal in an auction in a year. So I'm more talking private deals or.
It all depends. It depends what you collect, though, because I find that for years, even today, Comic Link. Again, depending on what you collect, I find Comic Link tons of stuff you could buy, and I feel like I watch the auction and I'm like, oh wow, that went pretty good. That went pretty good. Like, wow, that's pretty good. I would have bought that. You know, I think there's constantly stuff that I feel go for lower than they would have on Heritage, just because they're the number 2 rather than the number 1. And there's people that don't bother to show up at the Comic Link ones just because, you know, a lot of people I know, they don't even bother to show up at Comic Link simply because the number 1 reason being that, you know, they can't stand the whole inability to track. And I'm with them, right? Like I can't stand that. But I still tune in. But a lot of the guys tell me I can't even be bothered. I'm just like, forget it. I can't track, so forget it. They don't show up. So I personally think that there's still deals to be had. But again, it depends on what we collect, right? Like what I'm talking about, a lot of people would probably think, oh yeah, you're talking about that. Yeah, okay, maybe, but that stuff's crap. I don't want that. You know what I mean? So it just depends on what we're
That's
talking.
not the stuff you're going to look to flip, Reuben, right? You're not going to look to flip an obscure, you know, page from a non-superhero thing. It's not a realistic thing.
No, I mean,
how do you feel, being a dealer, like a rep? How do you feel about the world we live in with this?
Well, I mean being the rep part of it doesn't really have anything to do with it. I mean, it's very rare. It's very rare over the years that I've ever seen like somebody buy something from me, right? And then like a week or 2 later, I'll see that piece floating by somewhere online for sale. I have seen it, but it's super rare. But every time it happens, I'm always thinking like, what are you doing? Like, I know what I'm doing. I know you paid the fair market value. And now that you're trying to flip it 2 weeks later, you're probably going to lose your shirt on it. If you let's say auction it or whatever, you know, I know I didn't really leave any money off the, you know, there's no meat on that bone. So my view on that is if they're going to do it to me, whatever, man, good luck to you. Like, I applaud you if you can make money off of me by flipping, but I just don't, you know, I don't think it's likely going to happen. So whatever, you know,
what about when somebody sells maybe Berkey has a piece from one of your artists and puts it up for 3 times what you have them up? You know, has something like that happened to you before?
Yeah, that's happened. But at the same time, like, I've been in long enough to know that I just learned over time to not give a crap. So, because really in the end, remember, once it leaves your hands as a seller, right? Like, there's nothing you can do about it. So why would you care?
You wouldn't go adjust your prices if dueling dealers started selling those pieces for significantly more?
That's not flipping, though. That's a totally different subject.
I guess that would depend.
But it's the same, Fish. It's the exact same thing. Because if I see a piece I have is now selling for significantly more than I think it's worth, that's when I make a move on it.
No, I agree with you. I'm fine with the arbitrage part that you're doing. I do the same thing, but I think him raising prices as a rep is different.
Yeah.
You know.
Sorry, go ahead. And I'll make
so 2 things real fast. Number 1, like Jason, you kind of touched on this, but I know someone, like, there are people who will go to someone and say, can you please sell me this piece from your collection? I really wanted it. I've always treasured it. And they convince the people to do that and sell it to them. And then they turn around and flip it because they got it for, you know, $6-7 grand lower. That's messed up. That honesty is key. Like, really, like, if you're lying to people and taking things from people's personal collection to flip it, and you told them it was your grail, that I don't like. That's the kind of flipping I'm not into. But going back at Duke for 1 second, Duke, you live in an idealistic world, and I don't know if I wish the world was like that, but if the world was like that, you'd be right. But let's talk about what's really happening here. You say you have a problem with someone bidding something up at auction because they're going up against a real collector, right? That's not really what's happening. I'll tell you what they're going up against. They're going up against the dealers, because the dealers buy stuff at auction all the time. So the dealer is just going to take that and sell it for more money anyways. They're going up against other flippers. If it looks like a good price, that person's just going to flip it instead. And then they're going up against certain people who have a lot of money, have humongous collections, own like every great piece. So why should that person have it? So what actually happens is, so I bought a bunch of pages, not with the intention of flipping. And then as I told you guys, when I wanted this expensive page I couldn't afford, I sold 21 of those pages, and I made a lot of money, a lot of profit. They were 3 years later, it's fun. But where'd they go? They went to real collectors. They went to real collectors who joined the hobby 2-3 years later. So yeah, I bought it for $1,200 and I sold it for $4,000, but it went to a real collector, and I got myself a page I love, and it's above my fireplace, and will be there forever. So it's like it worked out fine. Whereas if you sit back in an auction and say, I'll let the real collector have this, yeah, good luck with where that's really going.
I suppose the problem is if we start encouraging everybody to flip in this way, then we're just encouraging speculation even more, and that could be deleterious to our hobby. So that's why I can't really propose that that's a great idea. I mean, if a few people do it, I don't think it's going to be a problem. But if everybody becomes a flipper like they did in comics or cards in the 90s, you know what I mean? It's going to be bad for our hobby, I think.
I think whoever's going to do it is already doing it. We're not encouraging anyone. We're not discouraging anyone. No one's going to change their mind from this conversation. Right, Reuben?
That's right.
I don't know about that. People think about ideas.
Well, like Jason said, I mean, he buys things for, you know, not because they're not part of his permanent collection, and they could be used as something later on. Like you mentioned, the money that Mikhail had 2 years ago, or if he would have used that to put in art. At the end of the day, everybody looks at the hobby in their own way, and I think the ones, and somebody mentioned in the comment earlier, it's fun to watch a flipper fail, and lose their shirt, because it's comical. You can make mistakes at doing that, and it is sort of humorous when that happens. But at the same time, I think I agree with Fish, and I saw Mikhail mention the same thing earlier. It's those times when either a collector goes to a dealer and says, "This is my grail," or worse, he goes to his peer and another collector saying, "Man, I have always wanted to own something from this book," and then and he pries it out of him. Usually maybe at a slightly better price, or even if not a better price, but then he's turning it around within a week to 10 days and reselling it. That's the kind of thing that drives everybody crazy, and it drives people out of the hobby too, because that turns their stomach to know that when you give something away to somebody because they express such an interest in it, and then you flip it for just for cash. I mean, any new collector might be so disheartened they would just leave the hobby if they thought that was what they should expect every time they deal with each of you guys, because somebody else in the circle would, or in our group would have done something similar. So I think those are the times and the instances that really, put a black mark on the hobby, and it's unfortunate. But, the thing is, all you got to do is call people out like that, and then they're not going to do it again. Hopefully, but it's the sob stories, I think, that are the ones that really get most of us. And I completely agree with you, Fish. I mean, it should never happen. But we can be gullible at times, right? And do things that we think are the right thing and sell
Some
things.
people are good sweet talkers.
Right.
Right.
So it's hard to tell when somebody's a good sweet talker or not, or they're really being honest about it. But I do agree with you, though. I don't begrudge really. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, Jason, I think it's great. I wish, I've never looked at the hobby in a way where I kind of would pick up things that I know that would hold some value later on, maybe trade value, because sometimes trade is better than cash. So, and if you end up flipping something in 30 days because you found the right deal, or heck, if you were really a bad guy, and we know you're not, because you could have bought that Watchmen piece and turned around and sold it for $1,000 more than you paid for it to Fish. And Fish, you probably still would have been happy. It still would have been a good price.
$10,000 more. He got me
$10,000 more. He could have sold it for 10. Right. And so that just shows you there's good guys and good friends, and we've always talked about this too. It's always the more people the better off you're going to be in this hobby, because you're going to have relationships like that. Because if a dealer knew you were looking for a Watchmen page, Fish, they would have probably scarfed that thing up at the low price, and you would have been the first person they would have been talking to.
And you know what? Yeah. I would have been okay with that from a point of view. But I'm happy. Right. Listen, definitely make good friends, make good connections, be honest with them, keep those connections, and life is good in this hobby, But Reuben, I feel like I cut you off before, Reuben. I feel like you were in the middle of saying something. I'm sorry, and I cut Jason off. But
no, that's okay. There's not really much to say about it. I mean, again, it all goes back to, well, what is a flipper really? And yes, I think everybody would agree that a flipper, the shorter the time frame that you hold on to it before you sell it, it's more likely you're going to be labeled a flipper or whatever. Again, I hate putting these arbitrary sort of time frames, because it is so arbitrary, but typically, the true flippers, the people that people see as flippers are, I guess like anywhere in the, buy today, flip tomorrow, or buy today and flip within the next couple of months kind of thing. And people say, oh, wow, you see that guy's flipping that thing he bought a couple of months ago. 6 months, a year, is it really flipping at that point? It's like you were saying, it's more of like, it's an investment. And in this hobby, this is it's an asset class that tends to move up quickly in value, and it always has, right? So somebody investing, are they any worse than somebody who's flipping? You know what I mean? Like, I've always bought, like, I've collected, but simultaneously, I've also always bought stuff if I saw something that was clearly undervalued. So I buy it, right? Now, I've never flipped, right? Not that I can remember. I can't even think of a single instance where I bought something and put it on my website that week or whatever, Typically, though, when I buy something, it's because I think it's undervalued. I still don't flip it. I just put it aside, typically for, on average, a couple of years. And that's not, again, it's not some arbitrary thing I come up with ahead of time. I'm just telling you, over time, I notice that that's what I end up doing regardless. I buy stuff that I feel is already a good deal. I put it in my inventory pile, and I just don't even think about it typically for a couple of years. And then, I haven't done a website update in a while. What do I have in inventory? And then I look through the stuff, right, and pop it all up there or whatever. To me, that's again, inventory, investment, whatever you want to call it. It's not flipping because you're not doing it quickly. But for those people that do it quickly, I think that I think it's fair to say the people that are most hated, it's not people who are successful at doing it. I think the people that are most hated for doing it, it's those people who seem to not really know what they're doing, and their whole sort of flipping business plan, if you will, is, well, let me just buy this, and this at the latest auction, at an open auction, right, public, that everybody can see me doing it, and then later that month or within the month, posting it for like double, triple, or quadruple what they paid and what everybody in the hobby knows they paid. Those are the guys that are hated the most. And typically, those guys are not successful. Those guys don't end up actually selling the vast majority of that crap they buy and triple the money, triple the price on, right? They don't end up selling it, right? But those are the guys that are hated, because what they're really doing is they're not really flipping, right? They're just holding shit hostage from somebody else who really wants it to want to have it. Right? It's being held hostage for who knows how long it's going to be held hostage. I think those are the guys that really are hated the most, more than anybody. To me, if I knew a guy who was successful enough that every time they bought something and, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month later, put it all up for resale in their calf gallery, and I saw it, if I saw with my own eyes the majority of that stuff actually find new buyers, I would be so impressed. You know what I mean? I would be so impressed. I would bow down to that person. Okay? Because obviously to me that would be telling me, holy shit, I'm the one who's wrong, and that guy's right. He knows what he's doing. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with the price. I think I know the prices, but clearly I don't. Right? But I don't know anybody who's good at it, who's really truly that good at it. I don't know. If you guys know somebody that I'm not even thinking of, bring a name up.
Mike Berkey.
He's a dealer. He's been a dealer for as long as I've known him and before. So to me, that's not a flipper, right? The vast majority of his inventory, I mean, it's built up over decades, right? And yeah, he occasionally buys stuff at auction and puts it on his website, not too long after. But that still represents a tiny fraction of his overall inventory. I mean, infinitesimally small. So whatever, like, yeah, he bought it because he obviously, in his case, he's a dealer, right? He does know the market value of most things. So in his case, he's obviously buying, and when he does it, particularly with he does it with higher end pieces. If he's going to blow $50K or $70K on something, and he puts it at San Diego on his website or whatever for $95K, it's because he really thinks he got it for somewhat undervalued. So I don't have a problem with that. If you know what I mean? Like, again, if it's overvalued when he reprices it and puts it up for sale, then it won't sell. It just won't sell. But I've seen Berkey resell shit that he's bought openly at auction. I've seen him resell it very quickly, way more often than I've seen him get stuck with stuff. So I don't have a problem with that. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Well, he knows who his buyers are. You know, he's been in the business a very long time. So if he sees something on Heritage, even if it's a $50,000 cover, that he's going to pay for that. But he knows. I think he thinks it's a $65,000 cover. So he's clearly going to buy. He'll pay $50,000 for that. And so that, but you're right. That's very different than the.
Why should dealers be the only ones that are allowed to make money that way?
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what Fish was saying. At the end of the day, that's I think the consensus is if you're going to flip something, it's more about that. Yeah, it's worse when it's the how. It's when you beg and plead for something.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, Bill. But
right.
the other thing
because there was a point in time early in my collecting. You know, there was I won't name any names, but there was the guy that went around to all the cons, would buy lots of stuff from the artists, get commissions, and then flip it around to eBay within a week. I mean, flipping became a bad thing, you know, when I think that started. And so, so people like that, but those are opportunistic guys, right? At the end of the day, they were flipping at the people who couldn't make it to the show by and large. The only persons that they were really upsetting were the other people in the show that didn't get to the tables that he got to beforehand. But he was at the end of the day doing a service. He'd go home, he'd put everything on eBay, and then people from other states that couldn't make it to those shows or overseas were able to buy these things. So, yeah, I'd say at the end of the day, I don't have a problem with flipping. Flipping is just it's been a part of the hobby forever.
It's a part of every hobby. It's a part of every hobby.
Right. Exactly. And
again, we call them all flippers, but I really think we should make a very distinct separation between the guys who are truly flippers and the guys who we should label as, let's say, hostage takers, right? Because I think there's a hell of a lot more guys who think they're flippers. They think it's as easy as, oh, let me buy this, I like it, and I'll put it in my calf gallery at double the price, right? Like, what's his name? Robert Lee? Am I getting the name right? There's this guy on calf who's constantly buying stuff from all over the internet, puts it in his calf gallery at twice the price or more, whatever. But not that I really follow his gallery, but from what I can tell, at least within the first 24 hours that he posts, I'm not seeing any sales happening. Anybody else seeing them? You know what I mean? So with that kind of strategy, those kinds of people, they may get, one or two lucky hits from people who didn't see it sell at auction just yesterday or whatever, right? And maybe he gets a sale because the buyer didn't really know, the fair market value. That'll happen all the time, sure, but it's few and far between. So to me, I just think a guy like I hate that type of mentality far more than flipping. Flipping to me means you've actually flipped it, right? You got to complete. It's like in football, the process of the catch, right? You got to catch it and keep control all the way down to the ground.
You have to make a flipping motion.
Okay. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like if you're not actually getting somebody else to pay you more for that piece that you jacked up the price on that you bought yesterday or last week, then you're not really a flipper. You're a wannabe flipper or an unsuccessful flipper, however you want to call it. So those guys really don't, they're annoying. They're annoying because it's like, well, again, to me, you're a hostage taker. Because how many people out there would maybe like to get those, would have liked to have won those pieces, let's say at auction or from wherever that person bought them from, right? And instead now, because the person believes in doubling or tripling the price, and I'm never going to go down on the price.
So there's one nuance that some people are making in the chat that Ron Lim made in the chat that I kind of agree with, even though I'm okay with flipping. There's a difference. Listen, when someone's selling something at Heritage, and you're like, oh, that Duke, you're like, oh, that flipper shouldn't buy it. He's driving the price up. don't forget there's someone else who's selling this and wants to make as much money as they can. A regular guy who wants to get as much as he can for his piece. You're trying to make him make less money for his piece, right? I'm okay with anyone who wants bidding there. But Ron was saying, like, you know, when you have someone who's purposely selling things under value so that, you know, collectors without as much money can get in, you know, for a dealer to come in there and try and scoop all that up, okay, I hear how that could be conceived as dirty. You know, that's a little, you know, Ron, I agree with you a little bit there.
So Rich Dennis, so Flipper, he says, Rich says flippers don't really have a genuine love for original art. Again, let's qualify that with, you know, is the person visibly collecting, first of all, right? Because if you're collecting and you're pretty active and you're adding stuff to your gallery, which is clearly not for sale, right? But you're also at the same time buying stuff and you're posting it for resale. Okay, yeah, you flip, but you know, I still respect the fact that you collect as well. I've never had a problem with people who collect and then also, you know, again, if you're opportunistic and you buy stuff that you feel might be worth more down the road. I started that way. I mean, I started that way and I've done it all the way through because I wasn't wealthy to start, right? So the way I figured I could help myself, I was always good at you know, in the comic book hobby, wheeling and dealing comics. So I figured I can do it in art. And so I buy stuff for myself. And then if I was opportunistic enough and I saw stuff that I thought was undervalued, I'd buy it and sell it, never quickly, but down the road, you know, and figuring that would help me buy more art down in the future for myself, right? And I've also recommended from the beginning, from the 90s when I got in, I recommended that, hey, to anybody who came into the hobby and asked me about this stuff, I recommended, hey, if you've got the cash flow, think about occasionally buying stuff to put aside, you know, because at the rate that this stuff all goes up, chances are you're going to make some money and you can use that money or you know, use it as currency to trade or buy different stuff down the road. You know, if you're not, you don't have bottomless.
Duke's raising his hand. What do you got to say, Duke?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think I worked in a comic shop for over 20 years, and people would always, you know, show me an item and say, "Oh, what do you think this is gonna be worth in the future?" And basically, they're looking at it as an investment. And I think that investing might be the ultimate flipper, because most of us, if we're buying with the notion that we're gonna resell this because this is an investment one day in the future, it's gonna go up in value. We're buying it because it's gonna go up in value. That's like long-term flipping, if you want to call it that. And I think that's just as much of an issue if you're buying something strictly because you think it has long-term investment value versus that you actually like the art. And you said, I don't care if somebody buys some art to sell and some art that they love. I think you should buy all the art. You should love it, because if you get stuck with it, it's nice to have art that you enjoy, right? At the end of the day, you want to have art that you enjoy at the end. And long-term investing is basically long-term flipping. So just try to buy what you love. I think that's the way I look at it for my own collecting, and I hope more people look at it for their own collecting as well.
There you have it. There you have it. And I saw Jeffrey. You're right. You know, that Adam Hughes prices went up because of you know, that one guy who was going around and picking up convention sketches and those sorts of things from him, and drove the prices up to where most collectors couldn't afford them, at least back in the day. So that's very true. And
Bill, in all fairness, the thing with the Adam Hughes is, okay, I mean, I don't agree with that, because Adam Hughes was financially stupid for like what, 10 years? Is it stupid? Well,
he's trying to put art in people's hands, you know, and he was the one who was just
no way, Bill.
I mean, I was talking with him all the time about it.
That is bull crap. This whole idea that, oh, the guy was so nice, just because he loves his fans. Bullshit. Okay, in this business, everybody is in it to make money. The artists selling their
not everybody is, Reuben. I mean, you know,
not Duke.
The artists, though, if you're selling art, you want to make money. You're selling the art to make money, right?
Yeah, but a lot of artists looked at you know, they were invited to shows. Their rooms were paid for, their tables were comped because the show wanted them to be there, and so they didn't have expenses. So some artists actually went to shows with the idea that, you know, they were really doing it for the fans. That's where free sketches, you know, started and everything. It's
Okay.
so I think Adam had a very altruistic approach to his pricing, and they aggressively changed it when he saw people. But I don't want to, we're getting a little bit off topic on stuff because I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but
can I just say that what Brian Ketter said in the chat is my exact view.
right. Well, I do. That Brian's. I know it's way up there now.
These definitions sound arbitrary between dealers, flippers, whatever. As long as you're not deceptive, like Duke, you run a store where you sell stuff. Are you trying to say you buy that stuff at the exact cost you sell it for, or do you buy those bobbleheads and then sell them at a higher price? You flip for a living. We all do. It's just silly to like make your own rules and say these are the rules that people should live by. I know you're only applying it to yourself. The bottom line is these are arbitrary definitions. As long as you're not using deception, you're being honest, do whatever the heck you want with your own money.
There you have it. And James is calling it here in the private chat, telling us we gotta see there. Yeah, he's giving us the cut it off. So James, did you ever share that screen you were going to share? Oh, he's not. His mic is muted. Your mic is muted, James.
Unmute. All right, let's share screen.
You got to share the right screen there, because we want to end every panel on a happy note, guys.
Window. Well, I think it worked.
Yeah, so, there it is. Look at that.
What we'll do is while you switch out the panel, Bill, we'll do process of elimination. So whoever's the last one standing, what do they win, Bill?
Hey, everybody gets anyone who wins this tonight will get on this panel gets a shirt of their choice out of the CAF T Public site. So good luck to the four of you. I hope Fish, you already won a Comic Art Live shirt. So I mean, you can complete that with a CAF shirt. You guys, we'll see. What
first elimination is Fish is out.
Hey, all right. Sorry about that.
Fun, everybody. Thank you.
Remove. All right, switch over the panels while we're getting this done. And Reuben's out.
Sorry, Reuben.
Now place your side bets in the chat.
You got a better shirt on though tonight.
Who do you think's gonna win, Dan or Jason? Put your comments in the chat.
I don't even know what this is.
Guy.
This is whoever got green light.
The winner gets eliminated.
Dan wins the shirt. He's the last man standing.
Nice job, Dan.
There you go. Okay.
Ruben, all we were doing was giving a shirt to whomever was left standing. For a shirt of their choice out of the CAF T Public store.
Oh,
Dan won it because he spoke the lesson. At least that's what it was, right, James?
Fair enough.
It did work out that way, but listen, guys. The other thing is, this was so much fun. I mean, it's why this platform, this conversation concept works so well. I mean, Fish, I could listen to you talk for 2 hours every week. I love your approach to things. And Ruben, same thing. Jason, Duke. I mean, the thing is, that's what makes these things fun. We all get to express our opinions, and we don't get to always do that in a platform where we can, at least be contradicted or challenged. So this is a great platform for that, and I'm going to miss it. But like I said, we're going to bring these back one way or another. But we got to get on to our second.
Before I leave
panel.
for the last time, Bill, I just want to say, like, art hobby is great, but there are some things bigger than art. And over the last 2 years, a lot of people have been holed up in their houses, and you have entertained us for 2 years, a year and a half. You have kept us all busy and happy. You've done such a service to the community. We're also thankful. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Trust me, I appreciate that. I didn't do it. I didn't start it for that reason, but I felt that there was a need after doing the first Comic Art Live, a year and a half ago, and
it's been fantastic.
So it's an odd feeling to have made it this far, and but it's again, I'm glad that we were able to do it all together. That's all I have to say, Fish. Thank you.
Thank you guys for jumping on this last show.
Thanks for having us.
You delivered.
So much fun.
Awesome.
All right, guys. I'm going to roll in the next group of chatters. So I'm going to roll everybody out. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, guys.
And I know in this next group, as you start bringing them in, we kind of put them together on, I don't know, it's like we were talking, everyone you have that chill beer with, just kind of laid back, just.
This is the chill group?
That's the chill group. So, I figured we'd keep it down a notch. Very informative, very good personalities, and just, let them chill and, talk about their topic. And I think
Ridiculous. I'm starting out immediately by calling whatever Encore says next bullshit.
It's all bullshit.
Oh, you're in the wrong group, Aranga. Hey, can you take Ron off?
Yeah, we should add you in the first group.
All right. Well,
Honestly,
I will,
that first group's going to be tough to keep up. I don't think a laid back attitude's really going to do it. I was figuring I'd dial it up a little bit for tonight. You know, am I the only one?
No, I'm getting hot under the collar. Just, I mean, it's.
I just took my sweater off.
all right, keep counting, and I'll set up the wheel.
All right, James, thank you. All right, so everybody, it's great to have you guys on the panel again for at least one last time, dropping James out there. So Dan, good to see you as always. You've been such a great help on the CAF updates with the video clips you've been doing, as well as participating in these chats, and it's been a fantastic addition to the channel. I mean, when Fish thanks me, I mean, at the end of the day, we should all be patting ourselves all on the back, because it was really the contributions that everybody's been doing. But and Aranga, you've been contributing not only in the chats here, but I've seen you over on 4C and whatnot. I mean, you're out there making the hobby better almost every night of the week. I don't know how you do it. Carl, same way. You've been on many of our chats, and Michael, you're new. You're driving us off the air.
Yeah.
And Ankur, you've been on numerous times as well, and in the chats. And the thing is, when I say all that at the same time, it's like when you weren't on screen, you guys have been, participating in the chat, which really the chat was where it was at. That's when I knew these shows that we were doing was actually important, was when I was seeing the interaction that was going on in the chat, right? When side conversations were happening that weren't even related to whatever topic you guys were talking about or what I would be talking about on a CAF update. That's when I knew these things were special and important, because people were making friendships and carrying on other conversations. And that was what was so darn cool about doing these. So it's what I'm going to miss, the most about this show. And but like I said, that's why we'll work these things back into our regular lives as we go. But the topic that James and Mikhail have set for you guys is how your buying strategies have changed over the last 2 years. And and certainly, when we look at it, I mean, that's we're approaching at least 19 months before the things became, the lockdown and the pencils down happened. But and there was a period, at least for the first few months, where I think there was a lot of apprehension from all of us, where we were going to be buying our art and which dealers were going to be able to restock their inventories fast enough. But I'm sure each of you has a different approach to what has changed in your collecting approach over the last couple of years. And so why don't we just kind of go around from top to bottom? And Dan, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, well, look, before I get the ball rolling, I just want to reinforce everything Fish said about your contribution. The fact is, it's a community, and everybody out there is doing their bit, and everybody in here is doing their bit. But you've really put yourself in the crux of it. I mean, I remember especially the first couple of months, it not giving a lot back to you in the very beginning. And you kept putting these shows on and seeing what works and what clicks and what doesn't. And it really, especially in the beginning, it really is on you. I got to tip my hat off to you, just like Fish, just like everybody else here should. Over the last year and a half, where everything turned kind of weird, a lot of things have changed in collecting. But if it's gotten any more connected, you take most of the credit for it. That's definitely on you. So hats off to you. When I heard that there was one more coming, I couldn't help but jump on if I had a chance. And I'm glad I got a chance to say that to you. Now that that's over with, the last 2 years have been weird. I think for me, I was selling more, and now I'm buying more, as opposed to 18 months ago. But my personal circumstances were a little bit different. I got caught with a couple of plates spinning when the whole world stopped for a few months. And that's when you sell stuff. I think with people who are in it real solidly, you're always kind of collecting, you're always looking to build. But when circumstances say it's time to sell, then you sell. Otherwise, if you can buy, then you go ahead and get a chance to buy. I mean, most of the panelists, except for one or two, most of the guys here have been in the hobby for years and years. Encore, I've been seeing around the New Jersey scene for 15 years, pretty much. Yeah. So, I mean, we're all building our collections bit by bit. The thing that's really different though now, look, comic art's always been getting more expensive, but at the same time, it wasn't horribly liquid. There were only so many people buying this stuff at a certain price level. If you were buying something, maybe you could flip it if you got it at the right place at the right time, under the radar, blah, blah, blah. But most of the time when you're going in, you're oh my God, I had a brain fart. Pardon me while I take a drink of water. God damn it. I can't believe that happened to me. Well, it'll take off the load off the rest of you guys. But there's never been this much liquidity. I'll say this. Years ago when I was collecting, when you would get something, you would kind of accept that you had to hold it for a while. Now, there's so much interest in collecting as opposed to 2 years ago. And I'm sensing a lot of liquidity from a lot of hobbies. The comic book stuff is the stuff most directly affected to what we do, but it's all over the place. And anybody who's gotten in over the last year or so, I don't care if you're into Kirby art or you're into Daniel Johnson art, or you're into Charizard cards or Michael Jordan rookie cards. Long story short, there's a lot of money frothing and floating around, and comic art is a lot more flippable. It's a lot more liquid. I'll say in that regard, it's a better time to sell than it's ever been. But conversely, a lot of the stuff that I collect and that you guys collect is all getting a lot more expensive. So from my own personal experience, I sold because I need the money at a certain point, and that's a great thing. If you need the money for something else, whether it's a business opportunity or financial obligation, go ahead. This is a wonderful time to sell. Otherwise, you're not going to get too many buying opportunities going forward. This stuff is going to keep getting more expensive. I don't know if it's going to stay liquid, but prices never really go down. The people who buy the most expensive stuff, unless they're dumping everything, really aren't going to move the market at this point. We're just not Dan, that kind of market.
Have you seen yourself more as a seller than a buyer in the last 2 years? And as a seller, then, I mean, did you have no problem finding buyers for your art? Whereas, maybe in years prior to that, your experience was a little different. I mean, because we wanted to talk more about like how your strategies as a buyer has changed. At least that's what James wanted.
Sure.
But if you were selling more, did you find that buyers were hitting you up faster, haggling less?
What happened was I started selling comic art just to be a bit more social. Before there was Bill Cox's YouTube channel, there was the New Jersey Art Con. And starting in like 2014, 2015, I just started getting a table, just for shits and giggles. And you'd wind up selling a piece or two. Nothing major. It was a great way to meet people and rub elbows. Instead of getting up and walking to all the tables, people would come to me. So that was great. And, you expected to mark your stuff up, maybe 20% more than what you paid for it if it was a couple of years old, not really old school. And you didn't really expect to move many pieces. It wasn't really a major show. It was just fun to do. But I will say the last few shows that I've done, the sales tend to be higher dollar amounts. It used to be very, very unusual for someone to come in and pick up multiples. If someone's coming and is very serious, they're looking to get more than one thing, which didn't really happen so much back in the day. Not for what I've got, I never bring too much good stuff, and I don't have a real deep. I'm not a dealer. I'm just a collector who occasionally finds I've got too much stuff. So, yeah, it's changed. It's changed. It's easier to sell, but I have fewer reasons to sell now. You know, if you don't need the money, and at the moment I don't, I'm very much more a buyer these days. That said, I can only buy a little bit, but you know, I had a few years to build up a collection, so a piece or two here and there suits me fine.
Awesome. So, Carl, how about you?
Hey,
What's changed the most for you in the last 2 years?
a ton in the last 2 months, actually. But I was telling James, I actually have my big D&D campaign tonight. It's a really big night tonight, but I felt like I had to come on just to say thanks to you, Bill, for putting this together, because on a weekly basis, I think it's been great for all of us. So I just want to echo what everyone's already been saying, and also even say bye to a lot of the faces I've seen regularly. But I would say my last 2-3 years, to be honest with you, has been a little bit just kind of shuffling through different emotions and different periods of discovery, and not really knowing what the focus is. So really didn't have a focus. But over the last couple of months, I have to really shout out Rob, who spent a lot of time with me, asking me questions and helping me think through what I'm actually really passionate about. I'm actually now focusing more on hunting down full issues. And I think there's a couple reasons of that. It's because one, it just spreads out the buying habit a lot more, where I notice that as I buy little stuff here and there, it just really adds up over time. And I tend to not feel like all of them are my favorites, but when I do find a full issue and I get to flip through it, it really stays in my collection. And when I pull it out, I flip through it, I really love it. And so that's definitely one. And then two is I feel like in the past, I always just consume, but I feel like now I have motivation to let some stuff go. So, for example, this next week with Comic Art Live will probably be the first time where I'm actually letting stuff go. But I've also shared with the guys where it's been so hard to price stuff, because to me it's worth this much, but I know the market is here, right? And so I think for me, I'm still having a hard time because I tend to have a pretty strong, sticky memory when it comes to nostalgia. And so I'm definitely in that process right now. So Dan coming in with this very calm, logical feeling of things, I'm not that. I'm freaking out all the time, going, "Oh my god, I gotta get rid of this to us." So that's me. But yeah, it's been great. I think the last 2 months, has been the biggest shift in my collecting habit, and I think it's gonna be less is more, I guess, is what I'm learning, and also a lot more focus as to what I'm acquiring. So
that makes sense. I mean, there was actually, let's see, there was a question for you from Dan, I believe. Since you're in the full issues, are you planning to sell off your pieces, one-off pieces more? I mean, is that are you literally shifting only to full issues, or?
Yeah, no, I'm actually want to try to get there, but it's really hard. So, for example, my wall I just redid. There's several things that are on here that I did sell or traded, and so I had to replace it with other things I had in storage and took the framers. But I am going to try to move a lot of the pages I have that are one-offs, especially a lot of sequentials I have that I'll be putting up. Some of them are pretty great single sequential pieces, but they just don't give me as much joy as flipping through a full story. And so I won't be making that move. Yeah. But yeah, that's my contribution. But mostly really just to say thanks. Felt like I had to be here for the last show. And, gonna miss you guys, because Sunday nights is, sometimes I'll be organizing my office or whatnot, and it'll be the collector conversation. I'm listening in and watching in the background. So going to miss it.
Well, like I said, we'll there will be more shows to come. It's we just need some time off. We're gonna rethink of our strategy for 2022, and I'm sure we'll do something to replace it. It just might not be as consistent as we were able to make this show before that. But thanks, Carl, to you as well, of course, for everything that you contributed. Aranga, how about you? As what has changed from your perspective, buying and probably selling a little bit during the same time?
Not really so much with selling. It's an interesting time period that we're talking about, right? Like the 2 years, because unlike most of the guys on this panel, that probably encompasses my entire time in the collecting hobby, right? Just a little over 2 years. And even then, it's it's interesting because I came in and for the most part it's still fairly the same, primarily commissions. But over the last few months, with the sprinkling of OA, more than like a strategy, I'd say, speaking about my habits, there's been plenty of soul searching over the last few months for sure. A little bit of it's peaks and valleys, right? Like, so like there'll be days where I'm a little bit disenfranchised with the whole thing. Like, you come into it. I still read comics to this day, right? I'm a regular reader, never stopped. So while there is, oh, I thought you guys were kicking me out. I was like, what?
No, I was waving to Carl. I'm sorry.
No, there's so like the nostalgia aspect of it is definitely strong. Like, kind of reading comics since like the early 90s. But I felt like it was something that's out of my reach right now, specifically kind of the way it is, and especially starting to collect around the time that I did. And then this is true for most new collectors as well, because we're essentially playing with our own capital. We're paying market value straight up, right? So we don't have chips to trade in. We didn't buy this art in the 80s or the early 90s or whatever. So we didn't build up that war chest watching our art appreciate. So everything you do is essentially just flushing in cash into it. So again, I'm rambling, but peaks and valleys. Like, I'll have the days where I'm, a little off on it, and then you come back to it, and you're like, man, I still love comics. I still love comic art. There's enough good art coming out today. It doesn't necessarily. I mean, good art didn't stop in the 90s. Some might argue it didn't start in the 90s, but if you can kind of get your head around that and say, and that's where I am now, is focusing a little bit more. I'm not completely off the commission bandwagon. I mean, definitely not. But when it comes to OA, just focusing a little bit more on newer creators, stuff that's coming out right now. And anytime I do feel that there is a little bit of a gold rush aspect creeping into the hobby, I remind myself that I still love comics. This is not strictly about nostalgia or even investment. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I don't want like Reuben yelling at me in the chat, but it's not strictly about that or investment. If you can kind of remind yourself why you love comics, whether that's today or 20 years ago, I think you're fine. I think the hobby's fine. I think I'll be fine. Hey, thanks for the couch, guys. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, Aranga,
I don't think prices are ever going down, honestly. I mean,
right.
Look, I don't know how much demand there's going to be for this stuff down the road, especially when you get off like the real mainstream stuff. But prices are never going down. At least, look, in the 15 years I've been around, it hasn't gone down. I think that there could be a killing in demand. I think prices can go so high that no one wants to touch something in particular. But, you're never going to see a 100K piece being offered by someone for 20K. It just doesn't go down in that direction. They'd rather just sit on it and have it be valuable and unsellable, collectors.
Sure. The graph has kind of shifted, though. I mean, it was, when you're talking about rising prices, it was like this for a while, and now it's kind of like this, to where.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The last 2 years for everything, everything collectible, for everything. Thank goodness you got into comic art, man. Man, be grateful you don't collect, Pikachu cards.
Oh yeah.
It's a wild ride. Some people are going to get burned on VHS tapes. Don't get in there, man. I'm
Oh,
telling
hey,
you, it's all
listen,
going
I
crazy.
haven't. My wife's kind of a hoarder of VHS tapes, and we still have a
Oh
bunch
no,
that never takes off.
You had to bring up VH tapes.
I didn't know it was a touchy topic. I thought it was safe.
We got the Godfather
Who
trilogy,
knew?
Indiana Jones, you name it, we got it on VHS. So if that stuff blows up, I'm gonna sell that and start buying comic art.
Just don't break the seal, Aranga. Just keep it sealed. You can't watch them.
All those things, yeah. You had to adjust the tracking. You got to like rewind. Yeah, it'll be all right.
But I think that's a good perspective, Aranga, to have the idea that, you know, when you see prices escalating, you just have to realize that, you know, you're in it because you love comics, and you can't get disappointed when you see, because like Dan says, prices are going to continue to go up. So, and that's certainly what we've seen. I mean, like everybody knows, I've been trying to find a home in Florida. The same spike is in home prices. It's like the houses were at 400,000 down there, and now they're at 650, 750,000 in less than a 12-month period. I mean, how does that happen? And we've seen the same thing happen here in our hobby and in comics. It's just we're in a very odd time. But the idea that at least we can go back and say, you know, we're in it for the comics, you know, we're in it for the stories, and we're in it for the art. And you know, you can't let that get you down. The fact that some things are unobtainable anymore. You know, I mean, and it's just a fact of the. It's always been there. At the end of the day, Dan and Ankur, who, you know, we put in, and I know it. It's been that way for a long time. I mean, I was priced out of Burn pages 8 or 10 years ago. So what they're selling at now doesn't really matter. I at least got over it then. It's just, but it's going to be something else tomorrow. It's going to be Hellboy pages by Mignola, right? If you can't get one now for 5 or 6, might as well forget it, because in 10 years they're going to all be 15 or 18, and you might, the ones that are out there now, and it's just how it is. So yeah, focus on the fact that we love this hobby and what we have and what we can afford, and never be jealous of anybody else who's getting the goodies that we can't afford anymore.
Yep. And then don't try to keep up with the Joneses.
No, it'll lead to ruin.
No.
That's for sure. So Ankur, how about you? What's changed the most for you in the last 2 years?
The one thing I have to wonder, just on the side panel, what Dan was mentioning, like the last 2 years, how everything has really gone parabolic. It makes me wonder how much of these pieces are being bought by true collectors and how many are being bought by truly just speculators who are going to, hold and then resell. But in any case, I digress. The biggest thing I'd say that's changed for me, the live shows has made a big difference. Bill, obviously, you've done a great job with that, but you realize how many different platforms all of a sudden picked up on it and started doing their own live sales and started doing claim sales and commissions and this and that. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I need to really not worry about what this person's selling, what that person's selling, is because you can't get everything. You can't see everything. And that fear of missing out, you have to really backtrack yourself and say, hold on a second. I don't need to watch every show. I don't need to set every alert, Facebook live show starting. Let's watch this. It gets to be too much. And while I know initially people were worried where they're going to get their art during the pandemic, I feel like it was actually overdrive. There was so much stuff available. Whether the auction durations were shorter, there were more auctions, more live sales, more everything. It got to be a lot to handle at one point, where I was like, I got to stop watching these things. So I did tune it back a little bit, and I have picked up some things, but I've tried to focus more on, like everyone has said, just focus more on your core things. And the other thing I realize is if you do miss out on a piece, something that might fit your collection, there's so much stuff out there. If you like the title, the artist, or the character, if one of those 3 things fit and you find a piece, there will definitely be other opportunities. And I think we see that in every auction, where there is definitely something else coming up around the corner. You might have to pay more for it. Yes, you're absolutely right. But there's just so much out there that I think we need to backtrack the fear of missing out and just take it as it goes. Take it slow. Like Dan's voice, nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Can I just say, I would want Dan to read me like all my comics. I mean, it's just Dan's voice is. Do you do radio, Dan?
You should be doing commercials. Man.
I do not.
Okay.
I don't like my voice so much. Thank you, though.
All right.
Oh man, but yes, it is true, Dan. You do have a very calming voice. But I get you. I completely get you though, Ankur, as well, because that was, it's it was happening even before we did Dueling Dealers or whatever. But everybody were looking for different ways to do claim sales, and I was watching. Everybody had a claim sale. The antique store down the road had a claim sale. Everybody, as soon as everything got locked down and you couldn't go shopping anymore, everyone had a claim sale. It was really, and it was interesting to see. But I enjoyed it just because I thought it was great just seeing everybody getting ambitious and trying new things and finding new ways to reach their audiences. And I commend them all. I just thought just like I say, local shops like that were doing those things. Like the antique ladies, they had to make the sales, and then nobody could come into the store, so they had to carry everything out and put it on the sidewalk when people would come in, and they passed them the money. So it was just an interesting approach, and it is semi overwhelming right now. And in a way, that's I look at it right now. That's why I'm kind of I'm trying to feel things out too, where I want to be. Now the cons are back and we're able to get back together. How many things do we need? As like I mentioned about being competitive against Heritage for time slots and things. That's like the last thing I want to be. I don't want to be interfering with your family time at night. That's the time when you're supposed to be hanging out, or maybe trolling eBay while you're sitting on the couch watching TV with your kids, right? But these things you have to be a little bit more invested in. You have to be, your eyeballs have to be on it, and so I'm thinking about that too, because I lost those similar things, time with family and whatnot, and so I'm looking at the next year and trying to figure out what's best for me, and really what's best for the hobby and everything else too. So I completely get where you're coming from on that, and I even look at it and think, well, maybe there only should be one Comic Art Live a year. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm trying to think what is going to be best, but I felt the same way because I started. I tried watching the Dueling Dealer Makers or whatever. I tried watching their show early on, and I like Ken Carson's show and JD's show. I try to watch that when I can, and I know a few other guys do, but it's just tough because they're happening so often, and that's why I think we all probably need because it was interesting and fun for a while, but at the same time I think we. At least for me, I need to kind of step back and say, what is the right amount of comic art fans and Comic Art Live influence out there, because there is enough out there. There's more than enough out there, and it's definitely an evolving space. I think we're going to see.
Yeah, but things are still getting bought. You see the volume is still keeping up. You ask how much is too much. I'm not sure we're at that point yet. I think there might be room for even more. All I know is they keep beefing up these auctions. They're coming out more frequently. You're doing your stuff, and I'm seeing things move, No,
I agree.
Legit collectors.
That's what's surprising about it too, is that things do keep moving, even though, like Ankur, you might skip this show or that show, during the week. Things still do keep selling, even when you see the turnover in the people who are buying in those live claim formats and whatnot. And like you said, Dan, Heritage added an extra signature auction a year, beginning right around the time of COVID, and I think at the end of the day, you're right. There's still probably more room, but that's why I think that there's got to be something a little bit better, some way to. So I can tell you, when we're doing the show this weekend, Ken Carson approached me about doing a concurrent, because he was actually had a show that he was doing on Saturday, and he asked me, could we do it as kind of a concurrent panel? And I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's work around a bigger show concept and bring in other opportunities to it. And so maybe those of us who are doing these things can maybe come together and find better ways to work together to make both our shows and things better for the community and better for the hobby, and then see where they evolve, because I do think these shows will evolve. They just kind of have to. It's been fun. Like when I did the Linsner show and the Oming show, those are very very different approaches to selling than those guys were used to. But and
you killed it for Oming. You killed it for him. I watched that drop. That was amazing. I almost bought the Dick Tracy. Real good stuff.
Oh, that was phenomenal. But that was saying, what was great about that show. And I didn't talk with him about it, but I think that helps him because he's somebody who doesn't sell a lot of his artwork, doesn't go out to shows a lot. But I think it was a great measuring point for him to see, the value on his art. I mean, when something gets claimed so quickly, it's like, wow, I should have probably asked more for that. I mean, we didn't talk about it, but I hope it was a good learning experience for him, and I think for other people that watch shows like that to see when things get claimed quick or they don't. But yeah, I mean, anyway, Ankur, you should finish your full, what you were talking about though, because we got on a little bit of a tangent.
No, just these live shows also, and I know a lot of dealers who have said that they don't really need to travel to shows anymore because the amount of sales they're having online and from these shows is really enough. They don't need to spend the money to go set up with this big display because they're doing enough. But I think that was my biggest change, was accepting that it's getting to be a bit overwhelming and maybe backtrack a little bit and try to refocus. And I have refocused a bit and sold some of my comics in order to buy some art that I loved. So it's been good.
Awesome. And Michael, you've been waiting patiently for your turn to speak. So tell us how your collecting strategies and your time in the hobby in the last 2 years have changed.
Well, prior to 2 years ago, basically nearly all of my buying was done either via eBay or it was done in person at conventions. So the in-person at conventions aspect of it obviously went away, but I have found, at least based on what I was looking for, my main focus, at least prior to recently, was panel pages and a lot of 80s, 90s stuff. eBay has really declined in terms of what's available and how you can search what's on there. When they redid the categories earlier this year, it basically demolished the search structure that I had, very carefully built over years, and it was just gone overnight. And what they've replaced it with, I still really can't completely make heads or tails of. So whereas eBay used to be a huge focus in my collecting, it's a very, very tiny piece now. And that has actually, and I'm grateful for this, between eBay sort of going away from me and in-person having gone away, at least temporarily, I started looking at more dealer sites and more art rep sites. And especially with respect to the art reps like Felix and Cadence, it's introduced me to original artwork by newer artists, which up until a couple of years ago, I really was not focusing on that at all. And over the last, really even just the last 6 months, particularly, nearly everything that I've bought has been newer stuff, because also the newer stuff seems to still be at, in certain cases, not all cases, more reasonable pricing than some of the older stuff. I mean, there are panel pages, especially Marvel panel pages from the 80s. It doesn't seem to matter what it is. The prices have skyrocketed to such an extent that I'm like, you know what? Thankfully, I have some of those. I don't need more. So, let's see what else is out there. And I've really been enjoying, the newer artwork, from the newer artists that I've been getting. So that's been a huge change for me.
Well, eBay's changes definitely affected a lot of people. I mean, because I work with them on the marketing side of things. And so I'm in touch with a lot of the people who promote eBay sales. And when they changed the structure, it really damaged a lot of those people's businesses, because the change in category structure just fouled up so many things and drove away a lot of buyers and drove away a lot of sellers, as you saw too, because it was such a confounding mess that they had created. I mean, it didn't actually impact anything for me, and oddly enough, it actually helped for some weird reason. We actually did better after they made the change, but for the majority of the people that deal in affiliate sales with eBay, most of them saw huge drops in the revenue that they were making. So but that's, I know it's like eBay always shoots itself in the foot. They have this opportunity. COVID rolls around. If they actually had the right platform and the right ideas, they would actually have done well. But no, they changed their categories right at this time that the pandemic starts, and they can never get it right, unfortunately. And somebody asked in the question about dueling dealer sales. The one thing that I've noticed about dueling dealers is we kind of changed our mindset a bit about 20 shows ago, and we started doing those cheaper shows, lower end shows. And I think in a weird way that was to our detriment. And it's funny because I look at the spreadsheet and I always highlighted whenever we did a low end show, like the first 20 shows didn't have any. And then we started doing them. And so like out of the last 24, 10 of them have been lower end shows. So it's just been our approach. And, Anthony was very interested in doing lower end shows. So somebody's cleaning house in the background. I'm not sure where, but yeah, so it's definitely been an interesting time. It's certainly, it's slowing down. I mean, you could look at, some of Heritage on their Wednesday shows were slowing down a little bit, and then they picked up. It's all an ebb and flow at the end of the day. I don't think that competition from other places have affected us too much, but I completely agree with eBay's challenges. So it's made a huge impact on a lot of people.
Are you guys
in a negative way?
Sorry, Bill, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Are you guys finding that, because this happened to me on a couple of occasions now, where I'll reach out to someone that had a piece for sale. I mean, I don't even know how long it's been up, but I see it, and they're like, "Oh, you know what? Sorry, we're sending it to auction." It's the visibility of what's going on at auctions. Suddenly, things that were set at a fixed price, they're kind of taking that down and being like, "You know what? It's maybe a better idea to send it off to auction."
Yeah.
It only makes sense. You're seeing what's happening at auction, and it's crazy. I mean, it's pretty well known that the cover to FF29 was offered on CAF months and months before it went to Heritage for much, much less than it wound up selling for, and not the person who put it up at Heritage, but the person who was looking to move it at a more reasonable price just pulled out something very nice to sell too. And they're giving it a try on eBay, but they're asking for the Heritage price. And it doesn't look like it's going to be so quick to move on eBay. But why wouldn't you price it strongly? When you had something nice, and you had trouble moving it, but you moved it, and then someone turns around and flips it for, I don't know, something between double, triple. I mean, if I were in that position, if you were in that position, wouldn't you say, well, look, I've got something else here that's pretty nice. I should probably make like it's going to Heritage, They've really made a big impact in the auctions. It's just
they have.
It's
I can tell you,
Heritage.
I've talked to a few dealers, and the common thread that happens, because there's people who have art that aren't aware of CAF or the communities that are out there. They approach dealers asking to sell, so dealers get into negotiations with those people to buy their art, and it's happening more and more where that seller, prospective seller or consigner turns around and just says, I've been seeing Heritage's name all the time. I'm gonna take it to that place called Heritage. And so I mean, it's so everybody's seeing it. I mean, Heritage has made such a splash with the sales that they've been getting. Who, it's hard to argue with that kind of philosophy. So I think, it's been very interesting to watch, and I think it's going to impact the hobby greatly going forward, because it's gotten a lot of press. At the end of the day, I mean, it's only better for Heritage, because they're able to command those prices. And but yeah, I've heard it from 3 different dealers.
I can't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't blame them.
Who can argue with that, right? I mean,
really.
At the end of the day, you never know. I mean, it's the dealer. They might be thinking they're going to could get a good deal from the dealer, and maybe in the past they would have just said, "All right, I'll take it." But now, no, it's like that they read the news about Heritage and Comic Link, and they're going to turn to that as an opportunity first before approaching a dealer.
I mean, it's happening with like modern art, like just stuff that it's not just things from like the 60s and 70s or whatever. I mean, there's people putting up stuff at auction, that just came out, a couple of months ago, stuff like that, and they're making money. So who knows? I definitely don't know what the right answer is, but it's definitely conducive to jumping on, even with the modern stuff. If you love it, buy it now directly.
Yeah, I mean,
Very-
very
Thanks,
true.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say one thing too that I've changed, and I think it goes to what a lot of us have been saying in all the different panels and all the different shows, is that in the past when the prices were generally lower, I was much more willing to be like, that looks okay. Why not? Let me get that. Nowadays, like if I don't get that, like, spider sense tingling sensation when I first see the art, it's like, all right, that's not for me. But if I get that, like, ooh, that art really speaks to me for whatever reason that I might not even be able to define, then it's like, all right, that's what I'll go for and nothing else, because you really have to focus in now on what you really, really love if you want to be able to enjoy the hobby.
Agreed.
So true.
Many distractions out there, but I think the thing with auctions is the price validation, where you see someone else's bidding right under what you were thinking about, or in that live sale. Well, okay, it's going for this much, but that means someone else is willing to pay that much. I think that fear of the price validation is what makes it, those auction items go for a lot more as well. Where if you see something for a sale at a set price, you're like, oh, but is it really worth that? And
Yeah.
you ask 10 of your friends, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because you're not sure. But then all of a sudden it's auction, it goes for double because all of a sudden you have that price validation there. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I've actually done that where I'll see something on a dealer site for a set price, and I'll go to look to see if there's any comparables in recent auctions to see, what are people paying for this?
We all do that.
Yeah.
And also, you got to realize when you've got a situation where things don't go down in value, like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm
don't
cutting
unmute
off.
No,
I'm done.
Dan, keep talking. Do not unmute.
Okay, well,
we're gonna keep going.
If I can just wrap this up, I'll say this: you learn a lot more from your failures than you do from your successes. And over the last couple of years, very few people have come to the conclusion that they've overpaid for comic art, and it encourages further speculation than maybe you would have taken otherwise, because everybody who's really stretched out, for the most part, not everybody, but most people who have stretched themselves for a piece a year ago have been rewarded for it. So it adds to the volatility, which I guess is how things have changed over the last couple of years. And that's my last note. I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think I've overpaid. I've just paid too much for too much. So.
Yeah, every time you say you've hit that limit, James, you always go over it. I've seen your Facebook posts. I'm done. I'm done for a month. I'm done for a while. And then next week, James is posting another DPS. He should have been on this panel about what's changed in the last 2 years. Wow. Hey. Uh-oh. We didn't.
Did that really just happen? Or was that?
I think that was a setup. That's how Dan wanted to end the show. Is that okay?
It's still good.
Okay.
It's still good.
James just had a heart attack.
It takes a lick and it keeps on ticking.
Our panel wins for action.
Well, look, I'm sorry about that, guys. Here's the thing. My art room is right next to my four-year-old's room. And on the off chance, like, I have to curse and yell, I don't want to wake him up. So I just wind up setting art in some quiet end of the house where I can go do my thing. And I put up a frame that was just a little bit too heavy, You guys talk too long,
But
really.
almost made
It
it
was
to
good
the end.
enough for as long as it
framing,
should
so
take.
an additional framing lesson there. How to hang.
Right. I see. We need another comic chat later on to talk about weights and nail weights. And
Well,
all right.
All right, Dan, pick a
I
number.
don't like
you
that
would
James
be the
shows
person
up
we
like
won't
the
have
Grim
on for that
Reaper.
topic.
James shows up like the Grim Reaper on these panels, just like, are you done, guys?
Can you mute that guy?
He's the Alvin boy. Next.
Hey, I also wanted to say real quick, I'm the only guy that didn't get to say thanks to Bill, and it made me sound ungrateful. So Bill, I've made more friends in this hobby through CAF than exponentially more through the hobby and then through this show. So I hope at some point, whatever iteration you guys come up with, you choose to have me back, because it's all about me.
We most certainly will, without question, man.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Two things.
So, James, you got the wheel?
Yeah, two things. First, if you haven't seen Aranga's art on CAF, go look him up. It's fantastic. He's amazing. Second, Dan, pick a number 1 through 5.
4.
6.
All right. So let's share this screen and get this done. All right, fourth person wins. And Anchor's gone.
Ooh, it was fixed.
Sorry, buddy.
It's cheering you leaving. 2.
No.
Oh, dude.
I actually programmed that one in.
Yeah.
That's why he gave you that compliment, because he knew you were going to lose.
Oh, Michael. You must be present to win?
Yeah, if the guy didn't make it to the end of the panel.
All right.
I vote for Dan.
Come on, you're not going to give it to
Dan wins by
Carl.
default.
Oh, well, so Carl wins.
No, Dan wins by default. Come on.
You know what? I'm just going to spin it.
Yeah, spin it, spin
The
it.
number thing didn't work. Oh, Carl wins.
All right, it's
Not
Carl's
even
shirt.
here. Yep, Carl got the shirt.
Shenanigans.
Oh, brother. Well, listen, guys, this was a lot of fun as always, and you know, like we've said already, it's we're going to do these things again, and now we have this great pool of people to work with. That I think it'll just make it so much more easier to come up with the panels we want to do in the future when we do them. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun for me too, especially to watch you guys, and I've learned a lot as well. I've been around this hobby for over 20 years, and there's so much that I don't know, and these chats have definitely taught me a lot. So again, thank you very much for being on the panel tonight and the panels in the past, and I look forward to getting to hang out with you guys in the future at a convention sometime.
Thank you, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, James, for all your work on this.
Thank you.
You know, Bill, the biggest change in the last 2 years in this hobby has been you.
Oi. Here.
All right. Thank you. I do appreciate that. It's never been
And
about
thanks
me,
for
though.
having me
So
on,
you just
James.
remember that,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
All right.
Thanks everyone.
Again.
Take care,
So
guys.
So the next panel, Mikhail and I put it together for the more, let's just say, technical-minded individuals that have been on the show that, definitely get into the details, get into the weeds. And so we thought the topic for them, and I guess you'll announce it when you're there, is the digital age of comics. So bring them up. Oh, start with Rob.
I've got Rob, and I've got there we go, and Kavi.
What's up,
Sorry,
fellas?
I'm trying to scroll around this list here. I know I've got Dave, and I've got Chris, and Derek, and I've got let's
It's
see.
a party.
Everybody.
Oh wow!
Did I get it? Did I miss anybody? But I'm hearing an echo though.
Yeah. So I encourage conflict, and with that, you can kick me out of here, Bill.
Thanks a lot, James.
You're welcome.
Here, let me get myself in a more proper position down at the bottom of this thing. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to kick James out. There he goes. All right, he's out. All right, welcome to the show, everybody. Chris, as always, I see you all the time, but nice to see you again, of course, on this panel. And Rob and George, have we ever really had two people in the same window before?
I don't think so.
No.
George was here in Charlotte for the Heroes Mega Minicon or whatever it's called. So he swung by, and we figured we'd do it both from my place.
Very cool, very cool. And Kavi, nice to see you again.
Good to be back here, Bill. Thank you again for making me part of this crew. Excited to be included in the what is this? The season finale? It's the season finale.
It's definitely the season finale. It's not over till we say it's over. But yeah, we're going to be taking a break for a little while.
And this is a do-over because I think George was supposed to be on my episode and he couldn't make it last minute. So now I get to hang with George a little bit and Rob in the same room. So
I'm excited, man.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
There you go. And Dave, nice to see you again.
You too.
We're gonna have a fun chat for sure. And Derek,
Hey.
Hey, nice to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's nice
again.
to see you face to face for the first time, Bill.
Right, I know this because I haven't had you on one of the panels that I've done. I think who was the host when I was gone?
It was Mikhail was the host when we did that panel. So
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, the Mikhail and James came up with the topic of the digital age of comics. Now that's like super open ended because I'm assuming we're going to be talking more about the digital art age of comics and not just the digital age of comics and the fact that people aren't picking up floppies like they used to. But so let's focus more on the art side of things and collecting and how we as collectors have seen the last couple of years. Certainly, have collecting monoprints and so many artists turning to working digitally has certainly, I think, caused a lot of fear and apprehension for those of us who've been in the hobby for a while. But there's a lot of younger collectors who really have, I think, look at the possibility of owning monoprints and potentially NFTs one day as digital art as a fully viable and normal part of their collecting. I mean, my kids barely pick up a pencil and a pad of paper anymore. They all turn, they turn to their drawing tablets and work on their iPads anymore. So I think we have a future in both comics and original art collecting that's going to change a lot over time, I think, which in weird ways is probably going to make the art a little bit more scarce, but open up opportunities for creators who wouldn't have had the opportunity to participate in these marketplaces that we've been enjoying for so long with traditional artists. So not really sure where to steer this and who to go to first. I mean, Chris, as someone who has been on, you've helped me choose artwork. I mean, you've got an art background, a lot like George as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you see as this digital age of comics that we're entering into and creators?
Sure. For me, I guess the way I look at this is I don't really read a lot of comics anymore. I do pick things up either if they involve like a favorite character or a favorite artist. Of course, I still do that. And I do actually pick a lot of those things up digitally. So I'll grab them on Comixology or the Marvel app or whatever. And as a guy who has in the adjacent room here, I have like 40 long boxes full of comics. I appreciate that part of digital comics, but as you mentioned, as an art collector, it sucks. Like that's the only way I can put it. There's a couple of guys right now who, I mean, to me is particularly frustrating that I can't get like actual originals from them. Pepe Larraz, I think and not an X-Men fan, but he's a generational X-Men artist. I've heard that said a few different places by a few different people. So the guys and girls and whatever's who are 13, 14 years old who are picking up X-Men right now, he's their Jim Lee. And for me, that like aspirational thing, the aspirational goal as an art collector of like picking up an original from Jim Lee, I mean, that drove me for literally the first 20 years of my art collecting hobby. And I only just recently realized that, as a matter of fact. So, I worry about that, basically the thing you just mentioned, Bill, which is how do you get kids to graduate from, well, I say graduate, a lot of people probably don't view it that way, but how do you get kids to graduate from reading and enjoying comics and getting, like really wrapped up in the art like all of us clearly have? How do you move them into original comic art collecting when there really isn't any? So, I'm even more intensely appreciative of the guys and gals who are still doing it traditionally, but so many of these like, pardon me, so many of these top new, like insanely talented creators are, they're using the tools that either they were instructed on in the first place, or they're using the tools that allow them to get those books out on time. And, in the case of like Jorge Jimenez, Batman hasn't looked that good in decades. So I can't fault him. The stuff that he's putting out, the books that are coming out, and the posters and the t-shirts and all that kind of stuff are amazing. They're just gorgeous. And I have to be honest, partially at least because of those tools, because having not seen a lot of traditional work from Jorge Jimenez anyway, I've seen some stuff from Pepe Larraz that was terrific, but as far as Jorge Jimenez is concerned, I don't see a lot of traditional stuff from him. So I'm not even sure what he's capable of without the tools. So yeah, for me, it's kind of a drag, to be honest.
I hear you. Robin, George, thoughts?
I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think that not to bring up the dreaded 3-letter word, but NFTs, I mean, are like obviously like one direction like digital art could go, but it's almost like kind of a different hobby. I mean, George and I have been here together, like flipping through art together, and it's just not the same thing like with NFTs, like to kind of share that kind of communal experience. And so, I mean, I think that's a natural direction art collecting will go, but it's definitely a different type of hobby at that point. I mean, I think one thing that's interesting too, I think you see a lot of, particularly with modern artists, is there's a ton of modern artists that are going to do that do digital pencils and then traditional inks, and so you see that happen a lot. I kind of hope that they keep doing that rather than go full digital. I still really enjoy those pages. I know some people care a lot about having the traditional pencils, but I think a lot of pages, really that final image, are some really fantastic inks, and I think having that like single page of inks is really is still really great. So I hope that continues. But I mean, to Chris's point, it's like some of these tools, I mean, they increase quality of life for the artist because they can produce work more quickly. And I mean, being a comic book artist is a really tough job, and so their quality of life, like just performing their profession, is really important. So I think it's really hard to say like where the hobby is going to go from a digital perspective. But I think there's still a lot of ways to enjoy it. I think we'll always remain a number of ways to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, I think just to add to Chris and Rob, I think that's the silver lining of the tools advancing with digital. And that this has been around for ages, with animation and even some of the traditional comic stuff that we've seen. But, seeing a lot of artists able to do cover layouts. Scotty Young's one that comes to mind where, I feel like that guy in 1 year pumped out 40 different variant covers. And I don't think he would have been able to do that if he was having to do everything traditional from start to finish. But being able to do layouts digitally and then ink traditionally, I think for us as collectors gave us more art to get our hands on and have more art in the world, which I think is pretty cool byproduct of that. I don't personally mind. I don't love digital in the process, but I totally understand why artists do it. And I don't personally mind digital pencils with traditional inks if that's the physical art that exists. And that's, to me, that's still the original piece. And I think NFT is a whole further step that's more removed from the artist. I saw someone mention coffee stains. I love the idea, and it's been talked about before, that the artist touched this and breathed on it, and the smells of their home. Like, probably I romanticize it probably way more than I should. And seeing artists like Brandon Graham, where it's like the coffee stain in the corner and the edges are not, they're all bent up and things like that, because that's how he carried it from the coffee shop he was working at back to his house before he sent it out. I love that kind of stuff. So in that era of digital age, I hope those things still exist within the digital age, because the tools they're gonna be there. Artists are gonna use them. It's not gonna go away. I hope they just continue to find ways to keep that interaction, that traditional step in there for us as collectors.
Try to figure out how to do NFT coffee stains on there.
I'm sure someone will figure it out.
Very true. Well, I won't even talk about NFTs right now. I mean, but I agree. And the thing is, looking at the two of you, sharing the hobby with someone else would be totally different. What are you going to hand them, your iPad? I mean, it's a different experience. And yet, you bring a portfolio to dinner, to a bar after a con. You can, share them and look at them. It's just a totally different experience to participate in the hobby when you're able to have something in your hands that's is traditionally done. So yeah, it's not the same hobby, at the end of the day. And I was talking with a dealer recently too about this very topic, and they were saying how, and it was a rep, and the rep was talking about the idea that that they're going to be selling digital art in the future soon, and the future being really right around the corner. And again, back to what was my opinion on that. And at the end of the day, I've always shared this, is that I think it's great that the artists can continue to make and begin to make money, who are working digitally. But it's just not at least in comic art. I could see myself maybe buying a piece of digital art, an NFT one day, but it won't be a piece of comic art, because my relationship to comics and comic illustration is very much in a tangible world where I can hold on to that art, and it wouldn't be the same if I was collecting digital things. So, but I think that's going to, as we've said, I think the buyers of tomorrow won't see much difference in that. But for me, and for probably a lot of collectors, that's the way I look at it. But I think at the end of the day, like we talked about, the artist being able to make more art, get more art in the art world, I think that's a fantastic thing. And so anything that makes their lives easier, I mean, we're here because of them. So,
and Bill, it's cool to see. I mean, I know there's artists like David Marquez, who's very smart about it, where he will work digitally, but he'll have a splash or a cover that he knows is going to be key, or someone's going to want that he'll do traditionally.
Sure.
That it's cool to see some of the artists very forward thinking about it in that regard.
Very true. So, hey, I don't want to leave anybody else out there. Kavi, what are your thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of what these guys are saying. So maybe just in an effort to not be repetitive, I'll try to look at the topic from a slightly different angle, because I feel like I'm a unique collector that has appeared on some of these shows, considering I still collect a lot of physical comic books. So I have a way of appreciating sort of the digital artists of today that are not selling their traditional OA by, enjoying and appreciating the physical comic books that are on the stands, either digitally or physically. I read a lot of digital comics. So I'm the opposite, where probably 90% of the comics I read or more now are digital. So I'm on my iPad all the time, going through back issues in the Marvel app, going through back issues in the DC app, buying single one-off issues from time to time digital. So I actually enjoy that medium as far as, a comic book reader / a comic book fan. As a comic book collector, like a slab collector or a back issue collector, to the point that I kind of just was alluding to, if Jorge Jimenez is doing a kick-ass job on Batman right now, I can still buy the Batman issue or read the Batman issue digitally and really appreciate the artwork, despite the fact that from an OA collector standpoint, which, out of those three things that I've been doing that OA part for the shortest amount of time. I started in 2017, 2018, whereas the other stuff, reading comic books, collecting comic books, started much earlier on. So I've kind of already started collecting OA in the era of the digital, I forget what the exact name of the topic was, but the digital era of comics or whatever has been that's been where I've been at my whole OA collecting time, right? So it's not like I've gone through some sort of drastic shift. It's like that has sort of existed from the moment that I've started and onwards with collecting art. So it's just something that, that I'm continuing to educate myself about along the way. And I think the key thing is medium, right? Understanding all the different combinations of medium that artists, that quote unquote digital artists deploy, is part of the sort of being an informed collector, being an educated collector in the current market. Because, I'll admit, back in 2017, 2018, I didn't necessarily know that some of the pages I was looking at buying were blue line only, or and that's still considered traditional OA, right? To a certain degree. But, you have that as an example. And then you also have things like, an artist that I'm a big fan of, Cliff Chang. All of his artwork on Paper Girls, I believe, were penciled digitally and then spit out the blue lines. And then he does the final inking job over that. And that is the only original art. And I consider that fully original art. I don't, right. I have no sort of, there's nothing in the back of my mind, I'm worried about that page. That's the original art, in my opinion. That is what is taken and then colored and then, lettered and turned into the story that I appreciate. So I think sort of understanding the different mediums. I think somebody mentioned Jenny Frizen as well in the chat. that's another cover artist that I really like. Like I own a Wonder Woman cover, and I had to educate myself about her process with penciling, and then colored penciling, taking the original pencils and then doing a kind of a grayscale shadow colored pencil thing on top of that, and then taking that and then going into coloring, right? So there's some of these artists have such unique approaches to their creative process in this digital age that it's almost like you got to do your homework, I guess, if you want to play in those waters. Like if you are a fan of any of these artists that are not deploying quote unquote traditional pencil and ink methods, you just make sure that you understand what you're comfortable with as a collector, and that you understand what the different artists that you're a fan of that you would be willing to contribute to, either directly to their livelihood or on the aftermarket, just to get it to be part of your collection, what you're comfortable with as a collector. So I think that's kind of where the key is, like figuring out for yourself what you're comfortable with as far as what you consider original art, without getting into the monoprint stuff and the NFT stuff, because I understand that stuff exists, and for me, it just personally hasn't been for me so far. I've had friends that have dabbled in the monoprint stuff. Some liked it, some didn't like it. Those are like newer, I guess, products that you can consider as a collector. But when looking at purely artists that have some sort of hybrid medium where some of their artwork is produced digitally, some of their artwork is produced, actually on a paper, right? Regardless of what the medium is, I think that's kind of the balance of where I'm at as a collector of, I guess, quote unquote modern artists or artists in the digital age. Like I'm a big fan of Ryan Stegman, and I love those final JP Mayer inks. And as much as I wish sometimes that those were all on one page, I also do appreciate pulling out the pencils every once in a while and sort of just seeing the differences, for an artist I really like, and a combination of artists that I really like, such as in that case. So I don't know if I really, I went a little bit all over the place, but I think that's where my head is at. And sometimes I even think I think to myself, if I'm an editor sitting, if I'm an editor at Marvel, if I'm an editor at DC, Image, whatever it is, like if you took away digital, if you took that away, right? Like how many comics could even be released on the shelves monthly? You know what I mean? Like I think a lot, vintage OA is a lot easier to sort of categorize and define because there were X amount of titles. Everybody's using the same mediums, pencil and ink for the most part, right? And how many books each publisher was putting out, what they were. In today's sort of modern comics industry, there are so many titles, and there's a lot to sort of keep track of as a reader. And sometimes it's just too hard. Like X-Men's an example. Like I love reading X-Men, but Marvel got to a point where there was like 13 titles coming out at the same time in the modern era with the current Hickman verse, and that gets a little bit tough to follow long term. So at the same time, I'm glad that those 13 books exist, because that's 13 artists that are being paid to do work for Marvel on X-Men, and that beefs up their resume as an artist, and then they can get more on their con sketches or their full-fledged commissions or whatever variant cover work or whatever it may be. So I think at the end of the day, the digital footprint is expanding the available sort of content in comics right now in a good way. It may not necessarily be equating to more art to collect, because there's so many more titles that are I guess produced purely digital. Like there's literally no physical part of the process for a lot of these newer comics. But that said, I'm glad that those comics still exist, and I'm glad that those artists can get that opportunity to sort of grow their footprint and have their name be published, right? Be a published comic book artist. That's a big thing. So whether you're a comic book artist doing your work all digitally, or whether you're still doing traditional pencil and ink, it's still the same level of accomplishment, right, for that artist. So I look at it a little bit more from like the macroeconomic sense, I guess, of the current modern comic book market, and primarily because I read a lot of comics that have come out in the last 3 to 5 years and that are continuing to come out. I enjoy reading those. So I would love to collect more artwork from those But it does seem to be that the volume, obviously there are still certain artists and reps that have a lot of that stuff. Like, Felix is putting out new artwork from his artists like every week or two, right? And then you've got artists like Mike Perkins that Reuben represents.
Multiple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But you got artists like Mike Perkins, that Reuben represents, that is doing a bang-up job, just doing both pencil and ink work on modern comics. So there's a lot of artists that are still doing it in that traditional medium. But I think digital comics are exciting because there's more publishers, there's just more players involved. And, as an art collector, sometimes that it's not always going to work out in our favor with, being able to collect,
Right.
But there's still ways to appreciate. So
good points.
Yeah.
So hey, before I move on to Dave, though, George, what was?
I was just going to add to Copy and Bill. Was going to say with the digital age, not just thinking drawing digitally. Was going to add. I think Samuel's comment about no more bullpen. Well, the bullpen is now global.
Yeah,
I feel like with this digital age, we're able to get. I feel like we're seeing more international artists than I've ever noticed. And which is amazing to see all the talent in Italy, Spain, Brazil, all these different parts of the world.
Philippines, right?
I haven't seen as many of these artists before because of this digital age.
Yeah, totally.
All right, Dave, move on to you.
Digital art, comic art collecting.
Yeah. Is that all you have to say?
No, I mean, I'm probably the dinosaur in this group. I can appreciate digital comic art, but digital comics, but as a collector, it doesn't really appeal to me that much. I have no interest in NFTs. Maybe if I buy one and I can make a lot of money on it, so I can buy traditional art or buy some NFTs so I can talk with my kids it's the hot topic that they're having fun with. That's really all my interest in owning it, understanding it. It's here. It's not going away. I get it. But just purely as a collector, less than zero interest. I've tried to kind of move. I'm still the guy that 10 years ago, I bought a couple Blue Line inked pieces, and then I went 10 years without buying anything else because it just didn't hold the same appeal to having everything done on a piece of paper. I think it goes back to when I was, in high school and taking a lot of art classes, and there was just something about a blank piece of paper turning into something because somebody, put a pencil and ink and, whatever onto it. I think that still appeals a lot to me. But as far as, collecting, I'm starting to slowly evolve. I have bought some ink only pages somewhat recently, but for the most part, I still find myself really drawn to the old stuff. And even the stuff that's being produced traditionally now is kind of where my eyes gravitate towards. But I also see the other side of it too, because without the digital, we're like, Kavi said, we wouldn't have comics, and that's a lot of where it's going. So, I can read a comic, and the gap is being closed from when it first started being digital. You could kind of tell that it was digital, and I think they're closing the gap. So if I read a comic now, and I can't tell how it was created, it appeals to me just as much as an older comic. But when it comes to buying the art, I'm more of a give me what the old stuff came. I think somebody put in the chat about Bermejo going digital, and I know Diodato went mostly digital at one point. I'm glad that I have traditional art from both of those guys, because especially with Bermejo, just what he does on a piece of paper, I just don't know how it could be replicated digitally. And being able to look at that work and those pencils. I have some Diodato stuff was published from pencils, and just seeing how it's almost dug into the paper because he pencils so hard on some of that stuff. That's kind of where my heart goes to. But I'm old school to the nth degree when it comes to what I buy. Now, what do I appreciate? I know I have to understand a little bit more about that stuff to move forward, but I'm old school through and through.
Nothing wrong with that, and that's why every person's collecting tastes are just going to be different, and you're going to reach your limitations to what you're willing to accept is something that you want to collect, right? I haven't bought a piece of Blue Lined art yet, but I'm not opposed to it, especially like Sean Phillips does the same thing. He's worked that way for a very long time. Does his layouts digitally and then prints it to the page and then inks that. If that's all you can get and that's the artist's work, then I'm good for it. But Chris, I saw it. I saw it. What would you like to say?
I was just gonna say, so Dave made a comment about not being able to distinguish between digital and traditional. And I think that's largely true, but I think that there's also this, in my eyes anyway, there's a different issue, which is some digital art actually to me looks overproduced. If that makes sense. I mean, that's a comment that's typically made about like music or movies, but some digital art is like so slick and like so worked and so almost like overwrought and like overproduced that it's like slaps you in the face like, hey, this is digital. And I talked about Jorge Menez earlier, and that's a guy where it's like, this is clearly all digital. Like I know that effect that he's using over here on this like piece of armor or whatever. So I think there's like a kind of a slippery slope there too.
I know. So I agree with you, Chris. And I think some of the things, like I think with a lot of digital, there's a lot of good to it. And some of the stuff bothers me too. Like especially like heavy-handed colorists will on a digital age will really just kind of muddy the line work, and the art looks so much better because digital colorists and sometimes inkers, but more so with the colorists from what I've seen, they'll just get a little heavy-handed with it and they'll kind of bury some of the line work. And that's what's always really appealed to me from collecting art is the line work. And the more I can see that line, that's really what I'm chasing. That's what appeals to me and makes me, break my wallet out and spend money.
That's a whole nother panel is colorist. Yeah. I feel like, even some of the traditional stuff in the 90s, hid the line work.
Yeah, that's true. No, and I agree. I think that when I first saw color, the coloring turning to digital coloring, I think that was a kind of a big turnoff for me because you saw such heavy-handedness in many colorists, and you could tell it was taking away the artist's, the original artist's intent in many ways by how they were handling coloring the book and maybe even bringing in elements that they just assumed that were needed and yeah, that was a really huge turnoff for me.
I think to be fair, maybe some of that comes from that whole, George Lucas special edition stigma. Like you don't want, your Killing Joke to be reimagined with new colors, or you don't want your, Swamp Thing Absolute to be, totally recolored differently. And I sort of get where everybody's coming from, like that, there's a large sense of disappointment if, the House of X, Powers of X art or 10 or whatever is not, something that's available for somebody to buy as original art. But I was also trying to come at this from maybe a more positive vantage point, and I tried to think of how it applied to me. And what I thought about was we're all talking about, this show and how much it did for us during the pandemic, but also I think digital age is just a matter of convenience. It's easy to read digital comics. It's easy to consume them. It's easy to purchase them. And what was positive for me about it was I could work with multiple artists and end up supporting up to 3 artists over the pandemic. And so I would, I didn't get to meet Ron Lim again at a con, but he was kind enough to send me a penciled commission piece. And then from there, I asked Bob Layton to use a scan of it, and he did a blue line ink job. And from there, I asked Dennis Lehman to color it in. And so for me, that's how the digital age applies to me. I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to go anywhere. I didn't have to, I guess, endanger anyone during the midst of what was going on, right? But I could still support all 3 of those artists, and I could fully realize like a really cool team up piece that I had Ron Lim do of the Savage Surfer and the Gladiator Superman in the midst of combat, and it would be fully colored. And you could argue the merits of I like this version of coloring, I like this version of inking, or whether or not it would have been nicer to say bring the pencil piece in and get it inked, whether it's always good to do scans of something and get it inked. But then with digital too, you could also get a do-over. I mean, you could get a piece colored digitally and you could go, oh man, that's the worst coloring job I've ever seen. But you could go to somebody else and they could color it again, and it could be the most beautiful coloring job you've ever seen. So I was just trying to come to it from that vantage point. And then also, just for a historical basis, no Batman Digital Justice, no Iron Man Crash, like all that stuff's kind of awesome. You can't buy any of the art from it, but it's pretty cool.
Very, very true. No, it's good, very good points, Derek, without question. I think that, I mean, that should never be lost. I mean, we've talked about always being good patrons, of the arts, and like you just said, the idea that you could stay in your home and be able to patronize two artists where you never had to even meet them and get them to do some, work for you, and then end up with a cool finished product. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's a great feeling at the end of the day. I mean, I've never been heavy into commissions, but I really think that's a cool part of the hobby. And you're right. Certainly in the digital age of things, it can be done much quicker. Probably in a cooler, and maybe in some more interesting ways. And things like that took years in the past when you wanted like, I got to get this guy to ink it, so I got to run into him at a show and hope that he's in the mood to do something like that. And then are you going to get that colored? So no. There's some positives, definitely.
There's certainly ways you can make that digital age work for you, right? Like if especially when it comes to commissions. I mean, and I fully appreciate and understand like disappointment in you see a cover that comes on the stands and then you realize that there is no original art for it and you're heartbroken about it. Like I totally get that. But I think there's ways where, if you were super interested in it, you can make it work for you. I mean, it's funny because then, you can pass that along to, artists that you love or you want to patronize and everything like that. I think Jason had shown us one of his Frank Cho pieces that was a prelim, and then Aranga was able to, digitally, basically, it was a blue line scan or whatever and ink it. And so then he was able to sort of fully realize that piece to his satisfaction. Right. And it's like, that's what's awesome about the digital age. And hopefully it's not all sort of, doom and gloom and I'm never going to buy a blue line or whatever. Right. There's also, cool stuff about it too.
Quite true. Quite true.
And I think there's a bigger learning curve, but to Dave's point, knowing that there's artists like Diodato and others that have gone digital, and that now your piece is now, the supply is getting lower by the day, in a way. I think it's harder for people to be aware of that, but I think maybe that's another trend to ride Derek's happy wave. Positive byproduct of some of these artists going digital or things being done digitally. The supply is harder to get, but maybe the piece that you have is that much more special.
I think the digital age has also kind of forced me to have more appreciation for inkers, because I look at a lot of art now that's inked only, and I've picked up some pages and there are differences. You can see the way stuff is inked, what kind of inks are used, what kind of techniques they use. And I have, as much as I'm primarily old school, I have started to pick up some ink stuff because I can appreciate seeing the work on the page. And that's really what it comes down to me. If I'm going to buy something and want to have it and collect it and look at, it's got to be more than just the way it looks on a screen. Because if that's what it is, I can just print something out. It's about the art. It's about the creation. It's about the artist's work. That I want to have a tangible copy of, and I haven't been able to. I don't know that I'll ever get to monoprints. I mean, that's probably a bridge too far for me. But we'll have this conversation.
Right, like I was very pro digital in my monologue, as Jason called it. But but as a collector, I do not own a monoprint. I do not own any sort of NFT art that was made purely for digital art's sake or NFT's sake, or I have like some of those free DC NFT collectibles that they just gave away or whatever, like collectible NFT cards, right? That's not original art necessarily. That's like its own subclass of digital collectibles. But like as a collector, I think my limit so far has been at pages that were either blue line only inked or blue line inked by the digital penciler. So that's I would have a hard time going further than that as a quote unquote art collector, at least at this stage in my collecting.
I could see picking one up if the price wasn't exorbitant, right? Yeah. But if an artist is doing a one of one, they're doing that to make, to kind of somewhat get that money back. But yeah, I could.
Ding.
We're in trouble.
James is the hall monitor today.
Yeah. I'm the authority. I'm the man. No.
He is the organizer of tonight's event.
We're trying. Go ahead, Dave.
I'm good. No, I'm good.
You kicking us off, James?
Yeah, I am. But we're gonna spin a wheel.
Oh,
fun.
Oh.
Yeah,
is this a real shirt or a digital shirt?
No, it's real. 100% real.
If you show up on the next show,
we don't need digital shirts with this crew right here.
You could just Photoshop it on me here, whatever.
All right. Well, in the essence of time, we'll just spin once. So let's see.
At least you put me in green on this slide. I think you broke my contract. You put
right. Enigma, you won.
You've been mixing it up every time, James.
I know. So that would be Mr. Derek. He gets
all right.
He gets a shirt.
Wait, am I Heart Comics or Music Man?
I was gonna say me and George could be either of those two nicknames. So this is a little stereotype thing.
It doesn't matter because neither of you guys won.
Because we lost.
James didn't have to explain himself.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh man, well, listen, guys. This has been a lot of fun, and again, we wouldn't be having the show tonight if it wasn't for James and his ability to corral everybody and to get everybody here to this evening. So hats off to James with your hat on.
Thanks, James.
I certainly appreciate all the effort you put into this. We've been doing it for a long time, and it really was James' effort that made it happen. I had a few people come to me, but by and large, James fielded all those requests and went out and sought so many of you to be on these panels. So thank you. Thanks to everybody, really.
I was volunteered. I didn't have a choice.
Huge thanks to James and to you too, Bill. This has been really fun, and many other people have said it already, but this hobby would be a lot different if it wasn't for you. So appreciate it.
Well, no, I appreciate it. And I'm the one who feels lucky to finally get to meet all of you guys too. I feel like I've lived the hermit's life while I was the mechanic at CAF for so long, and this has been a great opportunity for me really to break out of my shell and get to know people in the hobby like I really didn't take the opportunity to the first 17 years that I ran CAF. So thank you for being there all that time and for being here when we all needed it. So it really always has been about you guys. So thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
We got that one last panel.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
For you guys still watching, thanks. I know you're a dedicated team.
I'll hang out.
I removed one too fast. I'm sorry. All right, so James, so we're down to the last panel of the night.
Yeah, we asked the OGs to be this last panel. Basically, the first panel, 19, 20 shows ago, to come in and Well, I'll wait till you bring them all in. So
why don't we bring in? We got let's see. There's Dino. Nice to see you, Dino.
Hey, James. Hey, Bill.
Hey, and you've got your jersey on this evening. Oh, Patriots. Well, the Browns are playing the Patriots. I think.
I hear that.
I am in Cleveland, so
it'll be fun.
We'll have to text during that battle. Let's see who else we got in the green room. We've got Mikhail.
Hey, Mikhail.
Look at that. To get a
What's up, gentlemen?
And let's see, we've got Wonder Effing Woman. Nice to see you.
Yo.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me to the sausage party.
The OG crew.
Show.
And one more. Hey, Khalil.
Hey, gentlemen and gentlewomen.
What's up, Khalil?
What's up? Yes. And now that we're done with all that James kudos thing, Bill, you were saying how lucky it's been for you to have got a chance to meet me.
That is exactly, yes, I was speaking directly to you, Khalil.
Mikhail,
it's true.
I mean, you were looking right at me.
Are you wearing X-Men pasties?
What are you talking to, Mikhail? I didn't want to say anything. But
It's late.
but
We're
no,
going
it's-
there.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Wait. There's yet another surprise.
Uh-oh,
because
uh-oh.
underneath the extra-
Oh my god! Wait,
Oh,
please
there
gotta
you
go
go.
full screen for this. The unofficial comment.
I love it.
Oh,
That
buddy.
is great.
That is
You
awesome.
sent me that in
Mikhail.
a text. I was wondering what you were going to do with that.
Can I get another surprise after that? Keep
That
going.
is awesome. That is awesome.
Well,
You
I'm
gotta
sorry,
love the fact that we have so many inside jokes that we can share among ourselves. That's been awesome to be
No,
able
I
to
mean,
keep that.
It's the thing is that the most important stuff that we've done the last year and a half is really just the bonding that we've been able to accomplish through these things that are so it's so impersonal, right? We're looking at each other on a screen. I'm constantly having to scan around, monitor the chat, and yet we've managed to create these friendships that I mean, again, I feel so fortunate to have been a part of these, and I think everybody in the chat has felt the same way. I mean, these what we've done here in this chat and anything else that we've done on Comic Art Live has really made a difference in the hobby. I mean, I'm going to hug every one of you when I see you for the first time, and I guarantee that because I feel like the bonds that we've made through being able to hang out and chat and just get to know one another have been really, really important and just transcend the hobby in general, but have made the hobby so much more fun. I mean, I don't know, I assume for all of you too, but for me too. I mean, I haven't been this energized about the hobby in so long, and it's been from the fact that we've been able to hang out and share a common experience and our love for original comic art. And yeah, I mean, I think the hobby is a better place for all the time that we spent together and given of ourselves. And at the end of the day, and I hate to keep being a monologue about it, but that's what CAF was all about, right? It was about sharing your hobby, sharing your love for the hobby, sharing your collections with the hobby. Not everybody wants to do that. And not everybody wants to tune into these shows, but for the people that do and the people that want to use CAF to share their appreciation for the hobby and the things that they've collected with one another, I mean, it's an immense amount of joy, and I think that we've all really realized that that's what this hobby is really all about. At least it is, it is for me. So even when we talk about flipping and the value of art, it still comes back to the fact that we love the original art. We love being able to share it, and we love being able to share it with friends and people we've never met. I mean, how many times does that happen when new collectors reach out to you just to say, "Man, you've got a great collection, Khalil, man," or "Thanks for commenting on my piece." I mean, those things mean a lot, and that's what this was all about. That's what CAF has always been about, and it's taken a while for me to realize all that and appreciate that, but it's the time that we've all spent together that it's been really important. So I just want to thank all of you for sharing it with me.
That's a damn good Thanksgiving message, man.
We can
wow,
sign
it is.
off
Yeah,
now. That was a perfect
Yeah, drop the mic, Bill. That's it.
See you next time.
No. Sorry, should have saved that for the end. But just seeing you all here together. I mean, I've spent more time in these chats with all of you than okay, outside of Mike and Anthony, right? We could push them out of this conversation, but after them, I mean, you guys have been the people I've spent really the most time with, the five, and it's meant a lot. It really has. I can't thank you enough for to wanting to be a part of these things, and I am forever in your debt for being a part of these shows.
Yeah. Vice versa. Likewise.
Pleasure.
Thank you. So, James, what were we going to talk about at the in this last panel of the evening? I mean, that's the number one question now.
Well, I thought it would be really cool to go full circle, right? So it's been 20 episodes over about 6 months now. We've seen a ton of change, both in the hobby, both in the world, both in our lives. So it's more of a everyone picked a topic initially, and it's funny when we started the show. We were going to actually do kind of Facebook polling for topics, but kind of in a crunch, everyone on this panel picked a topic, and that became the norm of the show. So I thought it'd be good to revisit our original topics and not go back into them again, but just say, how have our thoughts have changed on those original topics over the past 6 months? Have they changed? How have you grown in the hobby? And so, basically just becoming a full circle and going back to where we started. So
James, you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah. Okay. And I'll go fast. No monologues, I promise. So So my topic was networking, how to network within the original art hobby. And my thoughts on there over the last 6 months, for the type of collector that I am, it's more important than ever, especially with, people talk about in every single panel, pricing. Well, for the pieces in the auctions, I can't play those games, right? I can't go and compete with a lot of the bankrolls for the pieces that I want anymore. It's just the reality of the situation. And so building a trust network, building a friend network, building an OA network where, people will show me where art is, or people will trust interactions when I reach out to them, and offer pieces of art that they might not have offered, or they might have gone to auction, but they said, "Hey, James, would you consider it first before it goes to auction?" Has allowed me to continue to grow my collection. And I'm not saying that, this network, I expect, friends and family pricing or anything. That's not it at all. Fair market, people do what they need to do. People have personal value associated with their collections, right? And provide those values, but it allows you to not have to, I guess, compete with the rest of the world on every single thing, on every single time. Because you've went out and build those connections and you have those relationships and conversations day in and day out. So, I mean, it's what's kept me in the hobby, not so much from a collecting standpoint only, but also a social standpoint. I mean, a lot of these guys here, a lot of these guys out there on the Facebook were my pandemic social group. And it's been fantastic over the past 6 months. And I haven't seen it change, except for being more and more important. So thank you for being part of my network, guys. It means a lot.
Yeah, James.
So we're going to go counterclockwise this time. Mikhail, how about you?
I don't know what James is talking about per se, but
hey, you got on here by default. I don't know who you are.
I agreed, and I won't even, when my first two comic collector conversations were very technical. They were about framing and packing, and not much has changed. I actually, and we ran super late this evening, so I thought I'd instead take my time to say, that what I've really enjoyed is throughout this process of CAF Live and all these shows, we've seen so many new voices come out and engage with us in the hobby and engage on CAF. And I think we can definitely attribute an increase in posts to people who are invigorated, seeing the community that they're a part of instead of just existing in a vacuum without knowing who these other people are that I'm bidding against at auction, or who's also going for a piece at a drop. And it's been fantastic. You don't feel bad losing out on pieces when they show up on CAF collections of people are collectors. And if anything, I'm like, great. That's where I lost out. That's where it ended up. That person's has a great gallery. They're going to take care of it. They appreciate it, and they're showing us all the scans so we can enjoy them and kind of appreciate the pieces. And I think that's been fantastic. And not to beat a dead horse, I'll just thank Bill. Everyone who's put time into this channel and they're given their expertise. People that we haven't seen that we should have, like Jeffrey Wedding, who's just behind the scenes, getting people together. There's so many people like that who, because maybe not being on camera in front of people is your thing, that's perfectly fine. People are finding other ways to contribute and to be a part of the community, and that's really been fantastic. And I'm really I've been thrilled. It's been a lifeline for me. It's been a distraction. It's been a welcome foray into something new over the last couple of years, and it's been fantastic.
Well, it wouldn't have been the same without you as well, Mikhail.
I appreciate that.
Definitely.
Yeah, Mikhail.
You've given us your wisdom and insight on things that I hadn't even considered doing, or with regards to framing. And I now only use painter's tape when I package my art, and I always put a little curl on the end, so it's real easy to take that tape off. I would never have known that trick if it wasn't for you. So it's been invaluable. But you've hosted the show here. and just you're in so many of the chats, and you've been a really big contributor.
No, I
to
really
to
enjoy the
panel
community.
as much as anything.
This year is going to mark, bizarrely, the year that I've gone to the most cons in one year. And I'm looking forward to meeting people at all of them. I'm going to be at San Diego, special edition if anyone's around, and then I'll be with James at Emerald City. So, stop by and say hi. It's been fantastic. At New York this year, we really had so much fun. Everyone meeting up, and everyone was exactly as you expected. There were no horrible surprises. There was no suggestion of like, let's go find someone and kill them. It was just what you expected. It was talking art. It was being good friends. It was really fantastic.
Awesome.
We're not going to kill anyone in Seattle either.
That's right.
So there will be no killing.
I don't know. I mean,
you never know.
Could get wild.
Seattle?
No killing anyone.
There was
Seattle.
North Carolina in June, right, Bill?
Yeah.
No
Heroes
way.
is the first show that I'm planning on going to. So yeah.
Seattle in December, North Carolina in June.
There you go.
Do it. Yes. Mikhail's got this unique kind of like mutant power to cut to some new unique contribution to our stuff, man. I like when it comes to new artists, other things too, right? But I'll get into my little thing here in a minute. But yeah, I definitely appreciate both him and James over the last year and a half. And
the work that James has put in corralling people.
Exactly. It made the world for all of us.
Can't be understated, definitely.
Yeah.
Use my scary voice.
I didn't even know you had a scary voice, James.
Hats off to you for hurting the cats.
And like Khalil, Mikhail, I've always thought of you as the innovator on the cutting edge of our hobby, introducing new things, new ways to wow people, and just a great guy, a good ambassador for our hobby. And it's always great running into you and talking and chatting and doing things. And we are really happy to have him.
Meeting anyone who hasn't met Dino in person, meeting him is like meeting a visiting dignitary.
That's kind of you.
It wasn't meant to be a love fest, but I mean,
but we will have that lightsaber. We will have that lightsaber battle in public. I think
absolutely.
That has to happen. That has to happen.
That was a wonderful moment. It really was. Yeah. And unexpected, at least for me, but yeah. So Dino, you've given us slides like no one else, and I think that that so many people quote those slides, and and I think that's as far as a contribution and a thing that this show will have been known for. It would have been for those early concepts on collecting and approaches to collecting that you put together in those slides. I mean, they have been commented on many times. In other shows too.
I am very honored to have that, to hear that, and certainly will always be willing to share and learn from others. And I think that's just the magic of what we have together. Reflecting on my first two conversations, they were about kind of going after the prize, right? It's about making unsolicited offers, responding to them, really trying to build your collection around personal value and pieces that really are meaningful and resonate with you. But it goes beyond that, I've learned. And it's not about the pieces and the collections as much as it is being part of a community and the people you get to meet and the relationships you build. And even the missed transactions you've had, just being able to interact with other people and kind of lay out why you like that piece and why the other person won't sell it to you because they love it even more. I think that's the joy of what we're all about. And I've gotten to rethink some of my approach to things, and it is, in terms of what will be a lasting effect for all of us, it's really being part of the community. And I think instead of trying to maximize personal value, I think it's about maximizing personal enjoyment. And if that means going out and meeting 100 collectors and being very social, or finding those few people that you can just interact with and just be passionate about this hobby, the way you experience it will be the way you can really enjoy being part of this group, and hopefully making this hobby kind of enjoyable for others that are coming in here. so that's my takeaway. You know, I really have grown as a collector, but as a community member, as part of this hobby. I've gained, like many of you, dozens, if not hundreds, of new relationships through all the amateur dueling dealers and the collector conversations and all the offside chats. And I'm really grateful for Bill and Kath and this community that we all are a part of. You know, we used to all talk about each other when we think about, hey, you know, what are you getting out of the hobby? People would pull out their photos or their pieces or point to things on the wall. Nowadays, it's about who you have met and who you've interacted with, all the war stories and all the lingo we've developed. I mean, I can make 50 people laugh by screaming, you know, bricks, cake, you know, thigh gap, pasties, and what's your best price? And this it's like being part of a secret society, and that is just awesome. And final reflection is, you know, I know that there's just so few people out there who can actually draw worth a hoot, and even fewer of those who can really appreciate comic art the way we do. And so the very fact that we can all share that sense of passion about this stuff, these pieces of paper that were made years ago that were actually disposable items that just bond us together as collectors and as fans, I think it's awesome. But the last thing I'd like to say is it makes us artists in a way, in that our collections, what we put together and how we build it, how we interact with others, and what we share, our knowledge, our pieces, our advice, and even just our time and effort, that makes us artists, self-expressors in this hobby, and that's how we make other people's experience better. And that's where we maximize our all collective personal enjoyment. So more to this, and I'm blessed to be part of this group and call many of you friends, and it's just been a blast. So
walk away a better person after a Dino conversation.
And I did that all with no slides. Sorry, Marcus. I know you want some. I thought this was a bit more sentimental, but no, I really enjoyed this, and I know we'll figure out ways of interacting more.
Right. This isn't the end.
So.
I mean, that's I hope everybody knows that this isn't the end. It's just a moment of where we just need,
that's right.
Take a little bit of a breather, and because but I know it's going to continue, and we're going to be able to continue to have these great conversations, and sometimes they're going to be in person. But that's just, I don't think, I don't know. It's just it's a moment where I wanted to just take a break, a small break, just a Sunday break.
That's right.
But Jill, you have had to be, you've had to hang out with the guys all the time.
Hey, shout out to Annika. She was on here too.
Annika, very true.
Only female,
that's true.
But
that's right. You were not the only
frequent female.
That's right. But and you were here at the start, and I appreciate that, because I was like, I remember when we were like, we've got to get a well-rounded group of people for this first one, and I left it up to James, and James was like, I know just who we're gonna get, and you were that person, and I'm so glad that he did. So because we got to certainly know a lot more about your collection and your collecting habits.
James, like, I know of a woman who will join.
I mean, I was like, who are you gonna? Because I just thought, because I watched the chat. Right.
I mean, I gotta follow Dino, so bear with me. But so I have to talk after Dino, which is tough in and of itself, because he's like the motivational speaker of collector conversations, I swear. But I mean, from the beginning, my first topic was about setting up a commission. And then my second topic was how to interact with an artist at their table. I mean, I've always kind of tried to be the person that would talk to the person that's new in the hobby. Try to cut through some of the, stuff that we all take for granted because we've been in the hobby and understand how it goes and have been to shows and have been doing this for years and can complain about prices increasing, where you have this whole other group we're trying to reach that haven't had any of those. They're just trying to, like, what's an NFT? What's OA? So what I've appreciated about the hobby is that there's something in here for everyone. If you want to collect art, for $20, you can find somebody. You can find a new artist. If you have a limited budget where you only want to spend $100 a month, you can be in this hobby. You can find something to like in the hobby. And, you know, I know where all the good barbecues at too. Thanks, Earl.
There you go.
So, yeah, right. So, but truly, yeah, I was on a barbecue road trip this weekend, so he knows. But that's what what I would like to leave everyone with is, you know, let's try to be as inclusive as possible, and let's try to reach out to those people that look really lost at a con, or, you know, ask the questions and they feel really stupid for asking the questions, but it's okay. You know, this is supposed to be an inclusive hobby. We're not all going to spend 5 figures on covers. If you can, great. If you can't, you can still find a place to collect something that you like. And this isn't goodbye. This is just, you know, we'll see you down the road, and I'll just pile on with everybody else with all of the appreciation for everything that Bill and James have done for the show, and Dino has stepped in and been host, and Mikhail has stepped in and been host, and, you know, all of the time that you guys have spent on slides and memes and, you know, entertaining and bringing us all together in a virtual little world that otherwise we weren't going to have, but really truly needed during a pandemic. So we appreciate that.
Thank you. No, it's been, you know, this is, like I said, I've said it many times, this has been the best year and a half of my life in the hobby in a very long time. And it's, and the most creative too. So I've really enjoyed every bit of it. And again, it's if I didn't have everybody to share it with, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as fun. So just having everybody be a part of it has meant a lot. Khalil, you're sporting a much more stylish hat tonight than James is, but what do you got to say for yourself?
Well, that's because I'm more stylish. I mean, it's just
I'm not arguing.
No doubt.
No, I'm just
but my internet
yeah, so yeah, just wrapping up here, I guess. I'll thank everybody again here. All of you, all 5 of you have contributed to my enjoyment in the last year and a half in this hobby, and directly and indirectly, right? So for me, my first topic was around shipping. The second was around the hunt, how to find art. So to me, it's just the last year and a half has been all about the journey and my enjoyment. And I feel like my overall knowledge and sophistication has grown just by the association of people I've gotten through this. And to echo what Wonder Effing Woman just said, I comment a lot on CAF. Others do too. Feel free to reach out to anybody on this panel, anybody that's been on the show before, because we enjoy this stuff. We enjoy welcoming folks in. We enjoy sharing. Hopefully, folks enjoy sharing things with us, because I think at the end of the day, what I've realized is it's more of a community than I ever thought it was. Right. So we all are, you know, getting what we're trying to get in terms of art, and sometimes it overlaps and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the fact that we share in this, that we learn from each other, that we're able to share wins, successes, share, you know, things that we might have messed up on, failed at. It's all been great. And I'm looking forward, like you said, Bill, it's not the end, but you know, we'll see this evolve. And that's the whole thing of this. You know, when I started on CAF, I'm loading a few pieces, right, that I've gotten. I've never talked to anybody about this stuff, and now we're here. So where are things going to look in 2, 3, 4, 5 years? That makes me pretty excited. Set aside prices on certain pieces of art when I say that, but in terms of, you know, what we're doing, and Bill, what you've been doing with the show here, I feel like my overall growth and expansion, and I think I can speak for some of my fellow panelists tonight, has just gone up another level, you know, because we share so much. We learn in terms of new artists, and to Wonder Effing Woman's point, could be 5 figures, could be $200-300. It's all stuff that resonates in terms of an excitement that we appreciate in this artistic realm. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I really appreciate y'all, everyone that came on prior tonight. It was great to put so many faces to CAF handles over the last year and a half, and I'm looking forward to meeting and seeing some of y'all in person at some point.
Absolutely, definitely.
No, it's
like you say, it's for love of the game, right? At the end of the day, I mean, we play. It's a game we're playing, but you kind of going back to what Fish said in the very first topic, you kind of stay respectful and honorable, and it can be a lot of fun. It can be very fulfilling and fruitful.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is so ironic that it took a pandemic to bring us really closer together, to kind of invent ways that we can interact with each other in much greater ways. But at the end of the day, we always talk about our hobby as an illness, an addiction, an obsession. Let's just hope for all of our sakes that it is an incurable one, right?
Yes, very, very true.
Yeah,
I
starts with you anytime, Dino.
Yeah, I look at it the same way, that it took a pandemic for us to find something. But I think that's we're in a position where, you know, we can look at the next couple of years and just react and to what's needed. You know, what is the next thing that's needed? I mean, the Collector Conversations was really something that was needed, and it filled that void, because it wasn't just me being a talking head on Thursday night or interviewing one-on-one with a person on Tuesday night. It was us coming together, and it was exactly what was needed. So I think that's the cool thing is I think as long as we're always forward thinking about this too, we can be ready for whatever that next thing is that we're going to do together. Yeah. And because we're going to do it together. I mean, we realize, it's like, wow, why weren't we doing it together for the last 10 years? So that's the part that excites me about the future of not just what I'm doing here, but what everyone around me is doing. When we talk about all the other, because there's so many other people doing things live, whether they're claim sales or chat shows too. I think just being able to be ready to embrace whatever that next thing is, and be able to share it and learn from it. And because again, I've learned a lot, you know, as a collector, and being a part of the hobby, you know, being able to have these conversations with you, doing the interviews that we've done. It's been incredibly educational for me, just to understand, you know, what it meant to be an art collector from another collector's perspective. I mean, I've been around people in the hobby for so long. You know, the biggest thing I learned was just understanding what makes you guys tick. And because I don't think I'd ever taken the time to really understand why it was important to you,
right?
You know, but now I have, and I think that's the thing that was missing from the hobby. I think for me, you know, for all those years of just building what I wanted out of CAF, was learning really what made everybody else enjoy the hobby in their way. And this channel and these conversations have really that's been the biggest thing for me, and it's the thing I'm most proud of, to be a part of it, and be able to share everybody's stories with them.
And Bill, very specifically, right, to the expansion and being helpful that way. So we have our group here, but what's been also very cool over the last so many months is through the CAF email, being able to connect with newer folks. Hey, saw the group on last week or whatever. Mind if I ask you a question? Y'all had I really enjoyed this part of the conversation that night. I mean, that's great to hear. You know what I mean? Like people that are newer, that don't feel as up in terms of knowledge yet, to kind of say they appreciate this, hearing this, and being able to interact with all of us here tonight individually, to be able to kind of, you know, toss things around. That's great. I love that.
No, agreed. I think the biggest group of people who email me regularly are the newer collectors, thanking us for putting this out there, letting them know that they're not the mistakes they're making. We've all made them. You know, I hear from many collectors that aren't comfortable yet sharing their collections on CAF because they don't think they're good enough to, you know, all they've got are sketches. And I think that if anything, I hope that these shows have let them know that, you know, anything that they collect is just the fact that they want to share, you know, that they should just do it, just jump into it. And that's the biggest, you know, takeaway I would want the newer collectors to know, is that it's not a competition. A lot of the newer collectors see it as that. They feel that there's that if they can't reach a certain threshold of collecting, that they shouldn't be out there being a part of the community and sharing what they've picked up. But they really have to understand that we all started there, and you know, if you want to, they should jump in and become a part of the hobby as soon as they can, because again, it's back to those relationships and everything. So I can't thank everybody enough. James, I can't thank you enough for helping us put this show together. And I will definitely I'm going to look to each and every one of you for assistance as we go forward. And, you know, if any lightning strikes and you have an idea that you think we might want to pursue, please don't hesitate to bring those thoughts to me, because if it makes sense and I think we think it's going to be good for the hobby, I want to explore anything we can do together in the future.
Yep. Caveat to that one: if you have a show idea, I'm sure Bill would love to hear the pitch and everything. Just make sure like you're going to put the work along with the show.
Right, it's a great idea for you, Bill, to run the show for. That one I probably would turn down, whatever that great idea might be. But
you know what, Bill? I feel like I always have to make I make these suggestions, and this might have come up before, but I'm in Arizona, Phoenix. We have Jill in Dallas. We have Dino in New York, Mikhail in San Diego, James in Oklahoma. If y'all are around, and are comfortable, right? I know we're still coming out of this pandemic. Let's meet up, So if we could get a little more specific on our handles about where we are, if people are willing to do that, that would be cool,
Well, it is something on CAF that I was talking with Maureen about, that when we're going to make it so that when you designate yourself being in the U.S., that it will also then ask for your state if you choose to provide it. It's not like it doesn't force you to do it, but I think that would be very helpful. I even had a great suggestion from somebody the other day that said, why don't you have if somebody says they're in Spain, why can't I go to the classifieds and just keyword search by the country that they picked? I'm like, I never thought of that. It's like, or even by collections, right? It's like, so the thing is, I get my best ideas from people who are just willing to reach out and throw ideas at me. I don't know why I've never thought of that. I'd love to be able to search. Show me everybody who likes X-Men art in the state of Ohio. That's what I want to know. Why not? So it's really true. I mean, I built CAF around not just my thoughts, but the cool ideas that people were throwing at me. So I think that those things should never stop. I mean, I think it's great. Some people think they're being critical, but honestly, sometimes I can't. My blinders are on with those sorts of things, and it's great to get people have throwing ideas at me that I would never have thought of before. So, but again, we have reached that. We're almost at the 3-hour mark for this show.
We got a wheel.
We got a wheel. Oh my God! You didn't share the screen.
Final wheel.
I'm sharing it right now.
Get the wheel on the. I can't wait.
Because I'm the host, by the way, I wanted to make sure it was fair. So,
oh boy,
let's go ahead and spin this.
Oh boy,
that's funny.
Hey, there you go.
And by the way, you have my vote to make Bowie the official.
Oh yes!
All right.
Bowie's going to be the official CAF mascot plus CAF shirt. Bowie is Mikhail's little bulldog. All right,
Bowie the bulldog.
NFT t-shirt emailed, yes.
I actually think on TeePublic they can print a pet shirt. So but I want to get the shirt that you've got on tonight, though, Mikhail. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
That is.
Which one?
The one with me on it.
With the little buddy.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
The little buddy one.
Oh no, it's gonna say sold. No.
It's gonna say sold.
Sold.
Watch out now. Watch out now.
Yeah, that's a classic. Oh boy. But again,
you saw the size of that glass he was drinking from.
I did.
Brandy.
Hey Bill, we went longer than the Dune movie today.
We did, didn't we?
We created our own.
We created our own epic. Well, that's true. But again, it's been a lot of fun. It's not the end. We will be back at it. I'm quite certain. Just let's see where we're at in the new year, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of new ideas and things that we can make more enjoyable on this channel and for the hobby and for us all. So again, I can't thank you all enough for being a part of this, and to our collecting futures, right? If I had it, I don't have anything to toast with here other than a bottle of water, but
happy collecting. Yep.
Happy collecting. Yes, exactly. Cheers.
Good night, guys.
All right. Good night, everybody. And
take care.
I don't have it. Just so everybody knows, I don't have a show on Tuesday again. I'm very focused on the Comic Art Live show coming up this weekend. So I will do a very brief CAF update on Thursday, and I will have the Dueling Dealers episode because I have to. But other than that, I'm 100% focused. There's 2 new features in there for you, for everybody. Announcements are built into the system now that you'll be able to do. each booth can push out 2 announcements per day. So if you're dropping prices or that sort of thing, there's the ability is in there now. And if you were an artist who was taking commissions, or you were a rep who has artists taking commissions, you can now upload commission examples as well. So so Maureen has been diligently working on several things while she's been down in Florida the last 2 weeks, and so those things will be ready for this show. So very happy about that. Awesome. But thanks again, and I'm calling it a wrap.
Thanks all.
Bye.